things. I'm glad to see that we're getting a bit of variety here on these particular games. I think that players are loading into the lobby, and well, I hope that we have those map bans to bring up, because that will stimulate a bit more conversation as to what we think will happen. It's a best of 3, so we will have a different map banning system here. And
of course.
There we go. It's ban, ban, pick, ban, ban, and then the deciding map comes up. And that's if we get to the 3rd map, because of best of 3, whoever wins 2 will walk away. And well, there you go. Cowana are going to get rid of the best map of Winstrike. I know you're all thinking in your head as their first ban. And then Winstrike will get rid of Concert. And the first pick is Cafe. What do you reckon, Des? Cowana picking Cafe as the first map. Is it really a surprise?
Not massively. They played it against Penta and didn't do very well. But I watched that game and there were a lot of small errors coming out. And I spoke to the players after and I was like, what was going on in this game, really? Sure, it was 6-6, but it wasn't very clean from you. And they were saying, look, different story. We'd secured our spot already in playoffs. We didn't want to come out here and show everything. If you see Cafe tomorrow, you are going to see a very different Cowana. So I am really excited to see that coming out as the first map.
All right, Hap, what about on the other side? We've got a Villa pick from Winstrike, a very technical map. I really don't think that's surprising either. What's your analysis on it?
Well, I mean, Oregon got taken out straight away, so they have to go somewhere else. And they played Villa once before. It was a 6-6 against Empire in the Russian Major League, so it shows that they're able to match up to EUL teams. The question is, will it be enough to fight Cowana here? Because they're missing their favorite map, which was to be expected, of course. Yeah. But yeah, how that's going to play out, I have no clue.
All right, 3rd map, Coastline. Who does this favor more? Let's say they both win their respective maps, or they win each other's map, doesn't matter, goes to the 3rd map. Who has the most likelihood of taking Coastline out of both of these teams? Des, throw your prediction.
I am so excited to see Cowana return back here. They played it back in week 1 when they came up against August, I believe it was. It was scrappy, but incredibly objective focused. In 6 of their rounds, there was either a plant going down or a plant did go down once we hit the end of that round and the thing's completed out. So to see Cowana, a team that I think sometimes struggle a little bit in the mid-round in terms of time efficiency, to have them go to a map where it is like, look, through that window, oh, look, you're on site and you can plant. This is the dream come true for them. I think this and Cafe are 2 really solid maps for them. You can't ignore Winstrike on this map either, but from watching back all of Covana's games yesterday, I think having Cafe and Coastline in there, they'll be very, very happy with that draft.
Winstrike out?
It's hard to tell, because we know, of course, they are big fraggers on that team, but they're often playing like an oiled machine, and like Coastline is a little bit more loose than that every now and then. You try and pick your fights left, right, and center, and it's going to be interesting to see how they will be matching up, because so far we've basically only seen them on Oregon. Was that hiding strats, hiding maps? I don't know, but it's definitely going to be an interesting BO3.
Well, you can see the counter down the bottom, 20 seconds left. I believe one of the players has done the usual European player thing where you go to the toilet right before your match starts, and then that way, you know, it really stimulates some kind of like adrenaline or something. I don't know what's going on with these players and needing to go to the toilet 1 minute before the game's meant to start, but I've asked you for predictions. You've seen the maps now of a best of 3, of which we don't often get the pleasure of being able to analyze, cast, host, etc. Des, who do you think walks away with this now you know the maps?
I wanted to come in saying Winstrike, to be truthfully honest. I thought, look, Winstrike are number 1 for a reason. Cowana, yes, had a bit of an odd game against Homeless. Otherwise, they'd be on the same points. They could be the team in first place. Seeing those maps come out. Now, bearing in mind, again, I've done a lot of looking at Cowana, a little bit less towards Winstrike. I think the 1st and 3rd map are absolutely solid for them right now.
Okay.
I think Cowana take it 2-1. I don't think they take Villa, but I think they can actually take this 2-1. And that's a little bit of UK pride showing through, maybe. But just having seen what they've done over the last few weeks, I think this can be their map, or their series even.
Hap, are you going to be the devil's advocate? Surely you're the devil's advocate here.
Look, I want to say Winstrike, but then I see only one, and I really have to wait for the 1st map to see how it plays out, because I have no clue how we'll be playing in a best of 3 in a map that they've, you know, not really shown that deeply before. And otherwise, I'm going to be urging towards Cowana as well, because they have a wider map pool. They're not afraid to show it. Winstrike, you know, it really comes down whether or not they have been hiding the fact enough. But the thing is, they are really predictable in their operator bans as well. You can read them like a book. Like banning out Oregon, they also banned Mira, like I believe 13 times out of the 14 times they had the opportunity to. So, you know, they're definitely urging towards some default bans.
Do you think there'll be target bans? Yeah, Des,
yes,
do you think there'll be target bans towards Winstrike specifically? Because like they're just so predictable.
No. I mean, I was going to say towards Cowana, absolutely. They always get Ying banned away against them and always ban Thatcher. Yeah. I think Cowana have their standard ones. They like their go-to bans, and they'll always lean towards things like the Thatcher. The defensive side might be a little bit more variable. Mira pretty much always guaranteed to be banned away at least at some point. And here on Cafe for the first map, it's probably going to be a pretty much guaranteed ban, I think alongside the Wamai.
Alrighty, well, I believe we have our players ready. This is our very first best of one here on the playoffs, Challenger League. Highest stakes some of these players will have ever seen. Let's throw it over to our very first matchup. It's Cowana, it's Winstrike, it's our first playoff matchup. Let's throw it over to our casters. We'll see you guys later.
Thank you very much, Desk. Whoa, look, it's us, two blondes here just to have a good time and watch some Siege.
Definitely real.
It's me and Gio. Dev, he's doing some Australian things today that Jess was not invited to, apparently. Hey, Gio, how's it going?
It's going good. Have you missed me since the major in August?
Yeah, I mean, we still work together. It's like...
Yeah, but, you know, we casted together, right?
Yeah, oh yeah, we haven't shouted at video games together for a while, because that's our reality. And the reality here, I think, was raised by Hap is Winstrike. As I stroke my chin, I say, wow, you're not playing Oregon. Cowana, they took a bit of a bold move just banning it because they knew Winstrike was going to pick it. Like, whatever happens, the ratio is one where they love Oregon. And now we've got maps where we really just don't know anything because they didn't play Cafe over any of the national leagues or any of the performance. They didn't play Coast over the national performance. They played Villa once and they drew it with Empire. But apart from that, Winstrike,
Yeah, I mean, Zofia ban, that's spicy. I was just gonna say, looking at the statistics in the last few months, Winstrike, they played it against Matchco, but yeah, no, other than that, it's definitely a rarity, and we're gonna have to see if their reliance upon going to the same map over and over is gonna end up coming and biting them.
Sophia, Wamai. This is kind of giving me flashbacks to the DG game from last night against Sonics, where we saw a Zofia ban, we saw some Jaeger ban, we saw some fun bans there, and it does push a little bit more creativity. It throws things to the wind on a day where you probably want a little bit more solidity. And I guess that's, I mean, it's potentially the mind games that can be played between these two. Because if we're going to talk about a team or a dynamics of teams that love to play the solid game, love to play the same game week in, week out and make it work, that's generally CIS region teams. That's generally Russian teams, Polish teams, teams like Winstrike. Cowana, their aggressive creativity. And I think them pulling Zofia, that's them trying to throw Winstrike.
I think it's also notable, and this goes back to something that Derry was saying, very commonly do Cowana have Ying banned against them. So even though they've decided to actually 6-pick off of it this time, they can still use that to their advantage, right? If they want to make the opposing team feel like they're going to bring that and they're going to use one of their arguably strongest operators, that still makes you think twice about how it is you're going to play until you find out that it's been a 6-pick. The point is it's on the board for them, and that's something that Cowana have had denied to them for quite some time.
Now the swap to the Pulse is going to bait a little bit of a play there from Maestro. Smash can get underneath, and it means any control over the top is at the imminent danger of 3C4s that are littered across the defender side here. Khade's going to try and lock down on the walls, but Kali is now showing face and force to smash through these and potentially try and crack the egg that Winstrike want to hold so dearly and delicately inside a kitchen. Unfortunately for them, that's generally traditionally where omelettes are made. Now, with a little bit of a rotation and extension onto the second story above, they've got a lot of aggressive information possibility here. And I guess Winstrike, my questions are, how are you going to step that up against a team like Cowana?
I think that's the thing. The best thing for Winstrike, in my opinion, right here is to not try and lean too much in Covana's playstyles. We know they're a very aggressive team, and if Winstrike try to stand up to that too much in a way that maybe goes beyond their boundaries of comfort, then they're probably going to find themselves falling by the wayside in those situations. So I like the fact that they've set this up for a very specific kind of defense with the 3C4s, with the Valkyrie and the Pulse. They have plenty of information. They have plenty of denial in the form of the Kaid and the smoke, different kinds of denial, but denial nonetheless. And they'll probably lean into that very heavily. I think let Cowana go on there. You know, they're clear, dealing with things in their own way, and then Winstrike will just lean into their own playstyle.
Quick pace clear here as they make sure that all of the top two stories are completely uninhabited. But we kind of knew that this was going to happen. They've played themselves all the way down on that ground floor. Sure, they've set up eyes and angles and ideas with the Pulse and the Valkyrie combo to kind of try and catch them off guard and blow them through the floor. That's the game that Winstrike want to play here. Unfortunately, so far, it doesn't look like we've seen Cowana fall for it just yet, but if Gorgona gets a little bit too careless here, he could be the first off the board, and that would be a tragic loss. A player who has really stepped up for Cowana. Kayak as well is another one to watch. The man is a plant machine. Third highest cost, I believe, out of the entire season, unfortunately not counting the most recent play day. So he has been a big addition, a big blow towards the opponents that have had to step up against the UK team. Oh no, there's the first caught, there's the first blown, and there's another C4. Gorgona is so low, but he's still swinging that hammer and still has 2 frag grenades. He's probably going to think about losing sooner rather than later.
Well, he could get caught out by another C4 soon, but already Smash has used his, so for now he'll remain safe. I think it's also notable the fact that Gorgona has decided to bring the sledge. That does give him the nades that usually he lacks, because it's become very well known by this point that Gorgona loves buck, but he's made no short work of opening up the floors above the site, and that allows them to provide a lot of vertical pressure, and there's Sloth taking advantage of that from the get-go, as he brings down Exo for the first kill.
Now then, 40 seconds, he smashed up the floor and got the hatch too. We can hear canisters popping just probably around the hatch area and then making sure that they have the close angles. But look at the wide hold here from Winstrike. They've let them take over the site entirely and tried to go for a bit more of a retake position. Cowana, they've got their angles set up. The C4 swings round, but doesn't quite catch it. The diffuser is planted. Levi goes down, and that is another body on the floor, but they've at least been able to find Sloth. The spray comes above with Grizzly on the top of the staircase, but the man's on the floor, and Cowana take a very left open site.
Well, Grizzly's cleanup at the end there was really crucial, given that 2 of the players from Cowana were DBNO at the end. He had to make up for the lost time, or the lost players rather, I should say. But the same thing kind of happened to Winstrike as well. As soon as we saw that they were present in that kind of orbital positioning, letting the players of Cowana in onto the site, and you think this is where they're going to collapse in, this is where they're going to apply that aggression, but they got shut down very quickly. I mean, Larry especially, he was a particularly good example on the Valkyrie just by Whiskey. He got taken down so quickly, meaning that him being the closest to where the plant was being done had really nothing that he could do in that instance. And there was another player who was down and brought down pretty swiftly as well, and the point is it completely stunted Winstrike's plan to collapse straight in on those players of Cowana. So maybe that won't be something they go for in the future. It was worth trying, but that is where we see Covana's gun skill and their ability to be aggressive come to fruition.
Hey, when the Axe on attack, that diffuser's getting down. That's what we see quite frequently, and there was no exception. They saw the window of opportunity and possibility. They threw themselves to the wind and found themselves victorious. Here, though, we look at the slight changes that have happened across the board of Winstrike. The Goyo is there, and alongside that is the Maestro. They're pulling themselves to something a lot heftier, more solid, more angles, more ideas, and more ability to keep a bit of a, I'm going to say, a step-off level of control. They can pop those shields if they need to. They can also angle behind them if they feel confident. Obviously, Zafir's off the board, so they're not going to be as easy as they usually are to get through. Not that it's easy, but it's harder today. And well, with the combination of the possibility of the Maestro cams and the Evil Eyes and the big bubbles keeping an eye and an overwatch over anything that happens across the top, it's going to mean Cowana won't be able to probably do their quick strike setup plan that they operated so perfectly before.
I like the fact that Winstrike have decided to bring along the Goyo, much like their Russian counterparts of Virtus Pro, who very much favor this operator. It also means that, with the Vulcan shields, because they take up so much space and time for the attackers, not only is it already difficult because of the Zafir ban, and it could take more time to remove that utility, especially if your Kali and your Ashe are doing something else, and actually there's the first shield that'll go down to demonstrate how Kali can deal with that. It could, in theory, waste a lot more time than otherwise would have.
Now Exo's buried behind one inside the core of this entire floor, the freezer. The Sloth is waiting and watching through some barricade destruction that might be a little bit different on his end, but I'm not seeing anything. There goes. That shield in the freezer heats things up a little bit and pushes them further back. Last time, potentially, Winstrike's hold was forced by the hand of the sledge above and put them into the uncomfortable situation of not really having the clear control and cover they wanted. Oh, Flarezo underneath, but Cowana has the drone and intel. Popping around and seeing the feetsies is going to make sure to pass that information to the train and make sure this train is a little bit delayed. The C4's thrown, blown, and missed. Thanks to that information weapon weave, Flairzo's going to rotate back up and tag in Rush. What's that? New C4, we're refreshed, replenished, and if Gorgona's not paying enough attention, they might be able to punish Cowana for it.
Notice, though, that they haven't opened up a hole right by the cigar door. That means that they can't throw a C4 up through into those players who are on cigar, which is something that you see very frequently used. Right there where Medics is looking. The floor is completely untouched, but actually Cowana are just going to move in.
The man is crawling through the middle of the site, and, well, everybody else behind him dies, but look at the current trade. It was actually a team kill that cost some of Cowana. Now they set themselves up on the opposite side. Flairzo, with a huge run out, is far away and far isolated. 30 seconds to recollect the diffuser. One C4 is playing beneath you, and an Arkix covering the door to make sure there's no very quick unruly intruders. Gonna go for the plant, but there's the blow, there's the miss, oh no! And both Winstrike are funneling their way up the top of white stairs. They're not quite sure where the diffuser is, but now they've got a firm idea as they see one body flooding away. They have double stacked, so you expect a potential rotation around the freezer to apply a bit of a pinch pressure here, but the air jabs may be set up close corners, close angles, no result though. As they're shut down by the swing of Rush, Grizzly steps in with a pretty more formidable gun in these kind of situations, but is caught out by the rotation I called before, and Cowana fall on a second round that was chaotic and full of unfortunate accidents with guns.
I liked the caution with which Winstrike played that at the end. You saw Rush, kind of opposite to his name, not rushing at the end. As Cowana set up those crossfires, they made sure that they came at them from an angle that they didn't think that they could cover, and being able to catch out those two players was obviously pivotal in their ability to make the post-plant situation work for themselves, particularly when that original denial attempt with the C4 did not work when the plant was first made. So a nice balancing of things out to kick off this best of three. And I think what we've seen so far is a demonstration of where the strengths of these two teams are at the moment. We have Cowana, who can play it incredibly aggressive, but like to play objective focused. And we have Winstrike, who will try and stem some kind of methodical plan for the very last few seconds that they are all going to execute together. In the first round, it didn't necessarily work in their favor, but you still saw the general idea in that last round.
What I will say about that round, though, is I think Cowana threw it. They were a little bit more their own enemies, and the chaos of their approach led to a team kill, led to them just being entirely caught in the crossfire of the single-man pinch, which they called, but you kill the person in front of you that's going for the same body as that person kills someone behind you. For me, that is a mistake on your part and your positioning. It's danger close, but the danger is your own man behind you. It gave Winstrike a little bit more semblance of being able to pull themselves into it and a little bit more structure with which they're able to strike. You hope, if you're looking through the gaze of your Winstrike goggles, that they solidify behind that, because we know that they can be a very, very solid team, and so far I think they've been taken a little bit by surprise by the pace that Cowana can apply.
I mean, we definitely shouldn't be taken aback by the scrappiness and the willing to fight of Cowana. You have to remember that while these are opposite seedings, we have Winstrike coming in as the first seed of Group A and Cowana as the fourth seed of Group B. Cowana is the team who made it into Challenger League in the first place by qualifying. They didn't do it through the Nationals. They narrowly missed out on that, and they had to go all the way through the qualifiers and beat a lot of teams to do it. This team have already proved that even if they're in the disadvantageous situation, going up against so many different teams, some of whom may be rated higher than them, they can still make their resolve work.
Now, as they go for an approach, yet again, huge pace from Cowana on the top store. Get Pixel locked off with an air jab and start to careen and control their way across the red staircase, with Cigar quickly falling to the favor of Gorgona. Haven't seen too many explosive kills, if any, with the huge amount of possibility we've had lit across both sides. Yet again, 3 C4s. Again, it's a great place to bring that level of destruction. And the 2 frag grenades from the hands of Gorgona, which are usually met with a skeleton key and buck instead. Whoops, they say as they blow up a drone. It's one of those moments and one of those mistakes where you wonder if they're going to have a little bit more success as we grow into the comfort and concern with their approach against each other. Exo's holding the top of white behind a Goyo shield and is going to try and catch anyone that swings a little bit too close, but with this break and this cut in the momentum, it's going to come down to the slight covers they have around Leroy. is looking for something very dangerous just underneath, waiting around the books, but has instead decided, okay, they might need to cover somewhere else as Cowana creep across the top of the bar.
Yeah, I like it. You know, they know that they've opened up the backstore, the freezer area, but Cowana don't want to take the risk of crossing those vertical holes that could find themselves getting caught out. We're going on the upside down rappel, trying to hold onto the angle into Cocktail, and this is really where Cowana take control of that part of the map. You can see that pretty much everyone else in Winstrike has moved back towards the site, barring EXO, who's gone all the way downstairs.
Now, as they start to funnel their way through, another C4 is blown and it doesn't catch anybody. The frag grenade obviously used to clear one of the Goyo shields at the top of the stairs. There's the first kill, and it comes from Sloth taking care of Flare Zone. Now, they're looking at angling their way down. They've pushed Winstrike beneath themselves with only 30 seconds. They've got to try and meet them sooner rather than later, and they're still steadily working on their destruction across the top. It was a bit of a slow push, but Gorgona's going to try and pick up the pace as Rush is the second to fall. The separation between the three remaining Winstrike players is EXO still on a bit of a potential surprise push here, but Kayak is going to try and get the diffuser down. Smashed by Ash is caught in the middle. They can't see the man. They're spraying everywhere, but it's a knock kick with the double kill in the cover, and now it's only the Smoke who long-armed a canister, but Cowana with a flawless.
There have been times so far in the mere 3 rounds that we have seen that I think Covana's pace has taken Winstrike quite aback. And you can tell that Winstrike were preparing for the potential and not necessarily for what was happening in the moment. For example, EXO's positioning was completely about whether someone was going to show themselves on Heaven, if they were going to jump down potentially. He wanted to try and catch out someone from that angle. You still had the Valkyrie, for example, who was over in train, despite the fact that all of the members of Cowana were over on the east side of the map. They were opening up directly above the site. They were getting ready to go in and plant. And so you didn't necessarily have the manpower in the moment, and that meant they had to have a late reaction. That's why we saw Smash run straight in, straight through the smoke, straight trying to just spray and pray, despite the fact that it wasn't necessarily to his advantage, because at that point you've just got to try something.
Yeah, it's exactly what I was talking about after the second round, was they're not ready. They're not prepared for this level of heat. Maybe it's because they're just warming into the game, because as we know, Winstrike can be
they're Russian and
a
it's cold
solid
there.
force. Yeah, there's maybe that as well. But also at the same time, what you're looking at is history, and the recent history of Cowana on Cafe against Penta. It was not a great game from Cowana. They've said it, and in the discussion with Des before and privately, they also said, yeah, they weren't trying to play a great game. They just went in every single time. But what you can take away from that game was a much slower pace. Now, obviously, this could just be me tying red string onto a wall and trying to make a story out of it, but at the same time, if what Winstrike are working on is the most recent results and performances from Cafe, maybe the Guns of Cowana playing their less usual game plan has been a bit of a false homework, as they've woken up to a completely different exam.
I mean, there are still semblances from that game that we can see. Cowana still went for some pretty aggressive plants when they were playing against Penta. For example, they took the risk of making a smoke drop down through Skylight and just going in straight for the plant. It's not something that you don't expect to see, but the difference is in this game, Cowana being a lot more careful about making a thorough clear, both with utility and with the players who may be around the map. That's something they didn't do so much with Penta, and I think that is the really poignant difference between these two games right now.
2 minutes we have, and yet again we have Winstrike playing around on this top, trying to slow and stem the roll, but this time they've gone for the 3 stories as they have the C4s playing right underneath. They almost want to bait that C4 game potentially and try and take Cowana by surprise. This time they're waiting there in the initial. Instead of rotating and falling down and wasting time elsewhere, they're going to hold their final push potential positions, with EXO being a bit of a troublemaker on the white stairs, drawing all the attention to him. They're hoping Cowana go, well, top's clear, let's go for sight, and then they can spring a trap and say, ho-ho, you thought it was clear, here's loads of C4s.
That's how Winstrike would hope things to go, but so far their C4 placement has not necessarily been the best. A lot of them have felt like Hail Marys with very limited information, and while it's nice that they're continuing to rely upon that kind of attempt, I mean, that kind of feels like a similar thing, but while they're continuing to rely on those kinds of attempts, if they can't actually make them more accurate and get a higher win percentage of those engagements, then, you know, there's only so many times that you can bring C4s and attempt or expect a different thing to happen.
Well, Sloth is taking control of Zulu and looking towards anyone that might be pushing and applying pressure, but it's Rush that's going for a big rotate round as Sloth is caught from a little bit of a dabble of danger. There's the swing, though, and 2 fall into the favor of Winstrike for the first time. They have a pretty adept body advantage, and there's no immediate pick back up from Cowana. There's one more for the trouble, but Grizzly does find Exo. 20 seconds, though, and it is only the diffuser carrier and Grizzly left as they creep back over the body of Sloth and try to find out why he went extinct in a way to get a little bit of revenge. They don't quite have the lock and the material cover that they need. They know somebody's in the library, and they know that they can shut down someone with some aggressive swing there, but there's still the danger of a lot of C4s underneath, and the man that's just killed your teammate, smashed by Ash, is looking to blow this final kill, but who will get there first? Well, it was Rush that won the race.
Oh, just the explosion. Despite the fact that the final kill was actually taken there by a Rush, you knew that Smash underneath with the pulse. You know he's got the cardiac sensor. You know this time he ain't gonna miss, and he absolutely didn't. And once again, that evens things out for these two teams. Now, there were some really good shots taken by Winstrike in that round, and naturally, that is a site that isn't necessarily seen so much in pro play. And part of me is reluctant to lean back on that and say, okay, this is a really good example that we can take forward and just assume that Winstrike are catching up with how Cowana have been playing. Because I would say it's fair to say that so far in this game, Cowana have probably had the upper hand in a lot of what has been going on. And I think we need to go back to some of these other sites, particularly here on Kitchen, where we did see kind of a disastrous attempt at a site retake from Winstrike on the first round. We need to see these, and we need to see them be adapted upon to actually tell how fast Winstrike are going to be keeping up with that pace that's being set by Cowana.
For me, as what I was kind of giving the example at the beginning of the previous round, was Winstrike set up differently. Instead of having themselves in positions where they hope to fall back to tactical locations, they had themselves set up underneath at first. They drew attention with a single player to the top floor and said, do your roam clear here? Because they've noticed Cowana are going for a generally singular roam clear. They're looking for a push and working the same way every single time. And before, it fell perfectly into Winstrike, because before, they played everybody on the top and then fell down to a position and then tried to strike back. This time, only a single player was up there, off the piste, off the par, and the others were able to, as that man fell back, push their previous tactical positions. Their actual first holds came through, and it led to 2 very quick kills against Cowana that just weren't ready for a Winstrike that hadn't been pressured yet.
Did that just get shot straight out of the air?
Yes, it did. It was an easy shoot, to be honest. They knew that they were there.
Well, I mean, yeah, they did. They didn't keep themselves quiet.
No, it was very much clay pigeon at that point.
It definitely felt that way. But Grizzly actually does take a hefty amount of damage there as he gets the hatch open. So Smash is going to return down to the site. That's where he was definitely best going to be able to provide the continued use of the cardiac sensor, especially now that the C4 has been used. And Winstrike, again, will play very kind of site-centric, I suspect.
Well, Grizzly hopes and hops in that he doesn't get caught, because he's only a flicker away from death at this point, with Flezo keeping a firm and keen eye on that hatch to make sure they don't drop in with the same pace and tenacity that they did before. Playing a bit of a baiting game to catch the wall too, as the clear comes steadily on. Gorgona is bringing the Ying. Obviously, it was the very first round. It was then 6th pick off, so they baited the play and now they've bought it. There's a bit of a declaration of, no, we are going to do this, and I'm curious to see how it works against the Winstrike that is generally quite spread out and set up for this possibility. They have a lot of trade potential. The thread of their defense runs all the way around the site itself, so theoretically, with the pace that they can apply on some of the pickups in other games, they should be able to react quickly to the pressure and the trade and have at least one man who isn't blind try and save the life of the one that probably is going to be.
Yeah, it looks like they're going to try and remove this electrical, potentially via a frag grenade, or Sloth looks like he's getting the breaching rounds ready. The point is they're still not bringing a Kali like they did earlier on, and there we go, the electrical claw has been removed, and that means they can make work on the freezer hatch, and this is where we can start to see the Ying get particularly utilized, but there's the second electrical, which I guess has stopped that in its tracks.
Yeah, still steadying on. Still have the frag grenade potential to cook and waste and blow it, but with only 40 seconds, whatever they do, they got to make sure it works now, as they've obviously been able to push him away with the slight destruction in the hatch. Concerned about the run out, it was the cost in the beginning of the previous round. The frag drops to the door, but it doesn't catch anybody. In fact, there is the swing, and there is the take on Rush. There is Exo, though, getting a bit of revenge, but another trip quickly burns down. Swings again to his own man. Coawana's aggression almost cost them, but there he is inside Coat. Smash by Ash pulls off. Again, the thread that had been strung and won by Winstrike has pulled them into control. They always had another body ready to spring up and find another kill, and here, with only a couple seconds left, Cowana, well, they don't find revenge for that, man.
Yeah, I mean, at that point, at the end, all Winstrike had to do was avoid those players that were moving down, because there were fewer than 10 seconds remaining, and if you can just hide, then pretty much guaranteed to win that round. I say pretty much, you are. And I think the fact that there was so much time spent from Cowana in a lot of that round until the point that they got to the freezer hatch and they couldn't get it open because of the Kaid trip, I put them in the position where they kind of had to make a very hurried decision about what was going to happen from then on. Because Grizzly, you could kind of tell he was running around a bit like a headless chicken in dining for a couple of seconds, because they've suddenly got to decide what they're doing. Yeah, the Ying worked, you could clear out VIP, but VIP isn't the site. And if you can't get on the site, you can't plant the objective, and you're probably not going to win.
Cowana, for the first time, you find yourself on the back foot, and it was from Winstrike. I would say for the first time, having a pretty decent complete control, especially of that kind of play space. Okay, sure, they took a round before, but it was a little bit chaotic, and there were stressful moments where they still managed to find their way into sight. This time, you didn't even let Cowana get entry. You locked them down with your setup and your angles, and you're playing more confident, which is to be expected of a team of the caliber that is demonstrated. Obviously, as well, it's always worth taking into consideration, this first map, this is Coawana's map. So they definitely want to try and pull this points here, because if we find ourselves going to Villa, where it's a bit of an unknown for Cowana, it would be a solid day for Winstrike.
Now, this is going to be an interesting one, because the way that Cowana cleared particularly the shields on this site a lot quicker last time was because they brought Kali, who actually got both the shield that was on Pixel and the shield that was inside Freezer. Well, this time they're not doing that. They have actually decided to continue on with the Ying, which once again, one of their strongest and most favored operators, and could turn out to be something that works very well in their favor. There's the electrical below. That's going to ensure that the washroom walls are electrified. But the point still stands that it's going to be significantly harder for them to clear out these shields unless they manage to get, the frag grenades. That's why they've got to clear out the ADSs, as they're doing now.
Almost caught there by the man on the window, just waiting on the white corridor, but they weren't quite obviously ready for the position and pressure that was going to come. Now it's the big rotations coming around, and Arkic sets himself up with the frag grenade to drop that shield, and that's going to mean Pixel is something where it is nigh impossible to hold onto and hold into. A big run out from Exo, tried to strike against one of the men on the window, but that's why you have the quick descent button, and that's what keeps you out of trouble. Is the easiest way and keeps all your blood inside your body. Sloth is inside Cigar, trying to find a bit of an angle and a bit of an approach here, with Cowana prepping onto this quick-paced drop hatch. Last time this worked not well. They accidentally killed each other and couldn't quite get the control. This time they're trying to apply even more chaos, because hey, why not when you have a Ying on the board? There goes the Maestro with a perfectly cooked grenade, and a minute 20, a huge amount of time to start this approach.
You can tell that they're getting ready with the Candelas to make the drop down, and there are two players already in Cigar. There's the first smoke. Rush is still present in Washroom. He could rotate through. There's the Candela, and in they come. They start to drop.
Well, the C4 pops, and you can hear a couple of explosions either way, and it's very much fallen to the favor of Winstrike. But do they know Kayak's there? They do now. Diffuser plant, and look at all the bodies of Winstrike swinging around to try and find a man. Kayak holds a close angle and catches one on the rotation, swings off to the second, but Exo is there behind. There is another trade, and there is now a 2 versus 3, but they have Skylight control. Flarezo puts it into 1 versus 3. Grizzly, you're in a 1 versus 3, but you have the perfect situation to try and take this from. No more utility, you've just got to wait, bait, and try and hope that when you do play this, you can be able to pick them off. Oh no. Winstrike respond with a pretty pinch-perfect pixel pull. And if we're going to talk about C4s being pulled out the windows, there was just a free kill for Winstrike.
Yeah, once again, it was an attempt. I'm thinking back to the Penta game, I already referenced it. It is a dangerous and risky move to make the jump down through Skylight, and it's not the first time that we've seen a number of deaths occur upon landing down on that bar floor. Now, of course, it was great that Kayak got the plant, but then everything that happened after that, not so great. Now, the sides have switched, and maybe Cowana going onto the defense will allow them the opportunity to pull this back in their favor. And the thing is, because this isn't Winstrike's map, and because this is a map that they haven't played on much at all, if they do continue on this, I don't want to say dominance because it doesn't feel like it's been dominant necessarily, but if they continue on this streak, let's say, then suddenly you're going to be going into a map where statistically, Cowana, you're meant to be on the back foot, and now you're looking down the barrel of a best of 3 that has suddenly swung out of your favor.
What up, Frostmatter? It's nice to see you. With your shotgun, your 1.5, and the possibility of taking people by surprise, we've seen it grow. In confidence, we've obviously seen it played by Saves and Na'Vi. We've seen it played by Gamma Gaming. We're big fans of the Frost. And now Cowana is going to step into that echelon, into that position and place. And it can take people by surprise. The traps, sure, but that's not why people are bringing her. They're bringing her because the 9mm with a 1.5 is a fantastic gun. Also, now she has a shotgun for rotations. Oh, wow. That's a good bit of benefit that you can have in your setup and your sights, and expect to see more of her.
Also got shields, by the way.
Yeah, but, you know.
People love shields, man.
People love guns, though.
Yeah, they do.
Yes.
Well, yeah, Frost has seen a lot more play recently across, I guess, most regions? Question mark? I think so. It feels like we've seen her a lot more across most regions. But Winstrike are going to be coming in with a slightly different approach to what Cowana did when they were on the attack. This time they're sporting the Yana. That's going to allow them the opportunity to gain more intel, as well as those extra frag grenades, which will help make up for the lack of the Zephyr.
Well, Sloth, he's a man who loves to throw himself out of every window. Des said he's apparently learned a little bit of restraint, and he's looking to try and punish, or at least put the fear into Winstrike earlier rather than later here. 2 bodies on the window are going to watch and wait and make sure nobody gets caught out from the quick-paced runouts, but you should be prepped for this. It's actually Lurai that struggles at first with a longer range firefight potential there, as Sloth is pinging bullets willy-nilly towards those windows and trying to hope to catch a little bit more of the body. He's going to be a bit of a thorn in the foot and the side as Winstrike try and collapse and do all the work upstairs. It's going to be something where it's a concern that you assume a team like Winstrike, with the coordination they have, can keep at least a bit of a hand and control on Grizzly. However, is looking to try and strike up and shoot all the way to the heavens and catch anybody that drops in and tries to apply some close pressure, as Leroy's able to open up the rotation towards the top of red stairs and angle himself towards Pixel. They're a little bit claustrophobic right now. They don't really have the clean run through, as Pixel's still under pressure, but it's actually a dangerous dance that almost cost Sloth his life. He's trying to find a firefight on every single angle, seemingly so far.
Yeah, but Sloth still has the shield in that room that he can use for protection, and there's the frag grenades coming in. A C4 as well from Grizzly, but once again, following the pattern of today, it has missed. But this should still allow Winstrike some room to push forward, but Gorgona is still perfectly safe in Freezer with the shield as well. So how successful has this clear been so far, especially as you still have this player downstairs? And that's going to be Smash's job to deal with, and he does. And that should at least put Winstrike forward a bit, but they have about 40 seconds remaining.
40 seconds and a quick bit of pace. They need to try and apply across the top. Caught by a canister that almost could have been their end, and caught in the middle of a room by Gorgona, still with that big 9mm and still with a huge angle as they couldn't get rid of the shield. Hey, how about a second? Oh, Sloth's going to steal them both as he swings his way over towards the deep bar corner on the far side on the top of the rotation on the red stairs. And he's still peeking for more, because why not get a third, Sloth says. All down to Flares Oh No, a team that couldn't quite get a true handle on the round. Unfortunately, has it entirely slipped through. Cowana take a very aggressive top fight there.
And it just really felt like it came down to the fact that Winstrike failed to do some kind of thorough clear. It took them so far into the round to be able to remove the Goyo who was roaming downstairs. It took them so far into the round to remove the shield and the player who was present in Washroom. They never did that for Freezer, and that meant that so much control of the center part of the map was still being held by Cowana, and it meant essentially whichever way Winstrike decided they wanted to push, there was still that threat that they then would have to deal with and have to worry about. And part of me wonders, you brought 4 frag grenades and you still let that utility stand. That's something that's concerning. And what we saw, of course, was then what happened was the diffuser got dropped. Sloth was allowed all the space in the world to push forward. And Flares tries to go pick it up. He tries to take what he can. But the answer in that situation is not much. He's got no one to watch his back. He's got, the angles being held on him from all various different directions. A difficult situation there for Winstrike, who are going to have to look for a much more effective and efficient clear when they head into this next round.
Yeah, the utility balance was just a little bit mistimed. You could see it most obviously when we saw Ace stuck in a corner, for lieu of a better word. It swung in, but they'd kind of opted to do the rotation after the man was already inside, which made the pressure that was being put on from Pixel a lot worse. They stacked themselves up, and for a team that is usually so succinct and dynamic with their use of burning utility and how to apply the pressure at the right time, it seemed like they were a little bit out of rhythm with what they wanted to achieve, and whether that was born and birthed from the pressure that was coming underneath or not. Either way, to be fair, on the first half we saw a little bit more of a chaotic Winstrike start to congeal into the more successive strike force we've seen them be before, and here you expect the same, so it's up to Cowana to keep the pressure and application and how they can do it against this team. There goes the bait, there goes the play, and Gorgona, well, he's going to stay right here and get caught out. Smash! Playing with the same panache he played with just before.
Look at this, Sloth present on Pixel, but it doesn't look like he has any kind of shield or anything behind which to play, so he's just basically relying on his own flesh and blood to be keeping himself safe and being able to take the shots. The Smash is just really not holding back in pushing on forward. And this is where Sloth is going to take his leave to move down, but he gets taken down by Illyri, who was perfectly ready on the white window. And Winstrike probably feeling more happy with this clear as they start to head down towards the actual site itself.
Yeah, 2 quick pace bodies, 2 quick catches there either side. They had themselves set up in a position where it was almost running away from Velociraptors. There's always one right next to you, clever girl. You know the scene. Now, as we start to see the actual push down towards the site with 1:20, loads of time, and hey, one more kill for the trouble. As Flezo swings around an Anarchic who was trying to counter back against the play onto white windows and just got caught out entirely. Yet again, a C4 blows with nobody actually caught out by it. Hey, we want to have a look at an aggressive response. Grizzlies decided to try and climb red stairs alongside Kayak. Cowana entirely left the site clear for a moment to see if they can cause some trouble, but unfortunately did nothing more than graze the Russian, who has been pretty formidable over these past couple rounds.
Now there's 47 seconds remaining, to be perfectly exact. You've only got 1 drone left on Winstrike, and now Kayak's gonna have to be pushed out of his position. Him and Grizzly are definitely staring at a significant man disadvantage, and that's why we've been seeing them play more aggressively in this scenario. You might as well play to your strengths, right? But they can't. Winstrike take a flawless round, as that one went significantly better than the previous.
2 entries in a row by Smash, but a different result this time round, and the second flawless for either team throughout this game. And now let's see, as we said, Cowana step up, because Winstrike, we know what they're capable of. They demonstrated it, and there was a very well put together attack. They had the instant lockdown, they were pushing with the intel, and in a way they know how to play Kavana's game. It's a mix of Z pings and instant hot drone, hot information aggression. It catches Cowana out time and time again. They go for these aggro plays and aggro possibilities, and if you just keep some eyes around, sometimes you get well rewarded with kills like the first 3 that we saw. Kitchen is going to be the replication here. The change as Kaid is on the board with the claws to try and keep a bit of a control over those hatches. Gonna force a little bit of a slower pace potentially from Winstrike's attack, and might play into a little bit of a slower pace from Cowana. They won't just suffer the guns of the Russians on every single front instantly, because the Russians now have just a little bit of structural utility work to do first.
I'm definitely wondering if Cowana are going to play this closer to the site. As we saw before, we had Sloth all the way upstairs holding a roam in the very top floor, and he got caught out when moving back down. And it was a bit of a gamble that didn't, in the end, pay off. And it meant that by the time you get to the moment at which you want as many people on the site as possible, because you've got to prepare for the push, significantly so were Cowana weakened to the point where there were only 2 players left. And they had to try and get aggressive because that was basically all they knew to do. But as I say this, it actually looks like Grizzly's getting prepared upstairs. I'm wondering if he's gonna stay up here, like maybe play under a hatch or something, but...
He did it before. They put their Melusi up there before. They've obviously just tagged out who is playing that role this time around, and they want to have someone else have a go with a very aggressive Melusi play on the second story. Grizzly believes that they can do it a little bit better than Cowana was able to run it previously, and the aggression here against the hatches unfortunately misses again. Another C4. Just doesn't quite lock off the kill.
It's like they're just cursed in this game.
It's a damp batch of C4. Someone needs to...
Yeah.
Someone needs to check.
Like whoever ordered these ones, you want to check your sources.
It's like when you order C4 from like Wish, and it comes like 6 months down the line.
Or like Alibaba or whatever it is.
It's not what you thought it was, and it's 7 months later, and it's...
Like sometimes you're on a budget.
Oh, I've got C2. Wow. Anyway.
That's definitely what it feels like, and the point stands is that Rush is still alive, and he's still able to use that soft destruction to his advantage to open up the map, as we're seeing now. Winstrike just preparing for their attack, not only doing that, but also placing the air jabs to prevent any of those potential flanks. There's a C4 from Gorgona. Will it catch anyone? Leary's very close by, and it looks like they are just waiting for now, but he's moving all the way out so as to be careful.
Well, there's use of one of the Selmas to try and crack the angle and get the claw worked perfectly. There's no secondary claw to stop the hatch being popped. We talked about Winstrike being good with utility, and there's a very quick demonstration of how and when. Rush is still exceptionally injured from before, but another C4 blows just near the man. Nobody is catching those haunted explosions this time round, and all of Cowana at this point, at least they're all alive. Last time round, there was only 2 of them left, and the 2 were spiraling up a staircase to try and get some angry revenge. So far, Winstrike have eyes on the prize. That's the site we expected. A slower pace to this round in terms of bodies being dropped, and that's what has been delivered. The frag grenades are going to see if they can start cooking up a storm here, but Kayak, he only suffers a little bit of shrapnel.
Yeah, they cook his, maybe a couple of his fingers, something like that. Not exactly what Winstrike may have hoped for, but they can still play this vertical as they prepare with another nade. And Leary's going to be jumping on down as well. He's concealed by the smoke. There's the nade. And now he can run on forward, but he takes a lot of damage. Is he even going to be able to go in for the plant?
No, and he's trying very hard, but you assume there's a big gun watching not too far away, and it's the gun of Sloth who's covering the rotation. Might not know that 3 bodies are already inside, but Gorgona's going to give the game away and drops the diffuser inside the site. The canister over the top. They do not have the time. They would have to try and strong lung it, but Sloth is there to take the wind out of the breath of somebody else. But Exo has the trade on the backside. Smash gets one more. It's a 3 versus 2 versus no. Cowana, they're able to find and clutch on and hang on. The body dropped in default around a smoke canister, but at that point, just out of time and out of life, I'm assuming.
You take a site against us once, we're not gonna let it happen again. And the fact that so much control was allowed to remain to be held by Cowana over in cooking and towards the kind of prep side of things. Gorgona's positioning especially just meant that as soon as Leary moved forward, despite the fact that the smoke was there, eventually you're gonna have to, emerge from the cloud, and he could just see straight through. They have the holes in the wall. It's a soft wall. He can shoot. There's no one there to flank around and try and stop him. There's no pressure being applied from the west side. There's no pressure seemingly being applied from above. And it meant that it became a very one-dimensional attempt from Winstrike at the end there that became incredibly risky very quickly and did not pay off.
Back to the bar is the core for...
That is my motto.
Yes. And it is one that they're going to try and live on. The UK massive as they head to the top floor and see if they can, I guess, double down what they did before. It was built upon misuse of utility and misplay by Winstrike. They weren't quite able to lock down the control on Cowana that they did so adeptly the next round over, and you wonder if that's the main lesson we're going to see learnt now as we start to, I guess, get a full idea of the growth Winstrike have. Still just one round away from map point on their opponent's map, but Cowana only one round away from bringing us back level.
It's at that point where it feels like whomever wins the next round, it sets the pace for the end of the game. And it feels like quite a wide pendulum. It can swing one way or the other. We don't know which way that's going to be yet. When we look back to round 7 and Cowana, they came to defend Bar, they were the ones who won. Now, Winstrike could realize, here are the adaptations we need to make. Here are how we're going to go about things. One of the really big problems that they had at the time was their inability to efficiently clear the utility that Cowana were using to their advantage, as they should be. But already straight away, it looks like a different approach is being made by Winstrike here. Exo narrowly catches one of those players. That's Sloth, who's playing in Dining, and he's going to back out towards Train.
Yeah, exactly where he was playing and causing trouble before, but Grizzly's going to try and offer some support. They have all of the eyes and intention on making sure that they can get this Roma first before he's able to rotate back to the top. And you think of the effect Sloth had the last time we were here. If they can take him out of the equation, it makes the maths a lot more simple for Winstrike to actually apply onto the site and the final test. Cowana is close enough to potentially alleviate some stresses as well, realized where the push is coming from, and realized he can rotate into what is otherwise usually treacherous territory. As Sloth is backed up by Grizzly, as said before, covering the escape, covering pillars, potentially trying to cover the man who fires some bullets towards machinery that otherwise saves his life.
And Grizzly's going to take a lot of damage as well. Now, the fact that Cocktail, as far as I could tell, was empty at the time, it meant that Smash could get a lot of holes open for the potential vertical angles. And there you go. They have many there, but there's going to be Gorgona as the first one to fall at the hands of Rush.
While a smoke canister on the stairs stops any other approach, but Rush is inside and trying to apply the pressure internally now as they draw all the eyes and attention, and Arkic almost goes, but Kayak's the cover, and Kayak's double as they find another one to be able to lock themselves in. The canister pops off, the diffuser is in the site again. The second time this has happened for Winstrike, where they have to find themselves trying to scramble and reapply themselves. Oh no! Smash goes down to Sloth. The Ash and the Jaeger battle eternally as Kayak does slip and fall inside the site itself. 30 seconds. Flezo and Exo have to double up and restack and reapply themselves, with Sloth just handing his life away by playing under the diffuser. It's a 2 versus 2 technically, as Kayak is in no position so far to be picked up. They have angles and ideas of where the pressure's going to come from. They don't know potentially that Kayak's dead, but the swing in comes. There's the pop, there's the cover, and there is Cowana pulling even.
You can't attack against the Yak, and I think his 2 kills were particularly pivotal there because, as I said before, there wasn't any presence in Cocktail, but the whole point was Cowana were ready for when that was entered by the attackers, and they moved straight on in. And not only do you find that you're losing members of your team, but you're also losing the diffuser in a place that's incredibly hard to retrieve. And that put Exo and Flares in a very difficult position at the end. They had to try and come around through opposite angles, but it was a very interesting way, or a very cool way, I think, how Cowana went about that. They had presence downstairs, and they had a lot of presence over on the west side of the map. They kind of left the primary site itself clear because they knew that if Winstrike moved straight in, they would be able to collapse on them, which is something that Winstrike failed to do when they attempted something very similar on their own defense.
5-5. Cowana, and the first time we're seeing your third site in your rotation, and I guess it's one that's a usual third site, so it's going to be expected by Winstrike. They are looking better, Winstrike, and they went for what is a very less familiar take on that top floor. It was very much a plan B. For a lot of teams it's a plan C, and for others it's just never truly attempted, is that Eastern Wall Eastern approach. Again, they almost got the diffuser in, and I'm curious if the moments are coming across on the comms where they go clear, 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 and then it's the Cowana strike back, or if they don't expect to get as much movement and momentum as possible. They're playing an aggressive game against an aggressive team, and I think at points they're still being taken a little bit by surprise, as we all often are, by what the UK like to do.
One of the big things that we mentioned in that last round was that depending on how things went, we would either have Winstrike pulling away to match point or Cowana evening things out. And evidently the latter was the one that ended up happening. And that means that this scrappy little team from the UK who fought their way into Challenger League in the first place are continuing to be scrappy and fight their way into this best of 3. And it doesn't look like it's going to stop anytime soon, as you say, you come over to your tertiary site. Once again, aggressive play here by Sloth, who doesn't seem to be afraid to take these engagements, despite what you and Des may say about him trying to subdue himself somewhat.
Yeah, I mean, okay, you weren't around, obviously, for the recent season of UKIN. Sloth just jumps out windows.
I wasn't.
No, he's way more controlled than he used to be. Because at this point, he would have already jumped out 2 windows.
What I'm hearing is he would not be invited to the NAFPL.
No, not at all. And Kayak and Grizzly are almost not invited to this round as well. The first 2 suffer huge amounts of damage across this top and across this battle again. Winstrike have been applying a huge amount of aggressive pace this time to try and counteract the possibility of them being caught. The first C4 goes off successfully! Yes! That was the first well-made C4 that we've had just in the pockets of any of these 2 teams.
That one came from Amazon.
That one was next day delivery, same day delivery actually, and unfortunately EXO was the catch. That's 2 frag grenades gone, but that's also EXO, who's been a really good player so far, both in terms of playing the Iana, pushing and getting the information that's led to someone like Ash, was smashed by Ash, and now it's the situation where they don't have that aggressive intel, they don't have that aggressive lead, and they don't have what has been the tip of their spear for almost every single attacking round that they've played.
And I think that's also really huge for Winstrike because their drone economy has not been the best so far in this game. And if you can utilize those Geminis when you are lacking in drones, then that is kind of that lifeline that a lot of teams choose to forego. But with EXO down, that's not an option anymore. And if they continue to run out of drones, then they are going to be flying completely blind.
Well, they have their top floor here, and Winstrike is still trying to apply some quick pace pressure, but with only 30 seconds, whatever they do, they've got to do it quickly. Kayak and Grizzly are on slivers of health. Not too peachy, but the pressure's going to start coming towards the library door as they set themselves up inside pillars. Smash gets caught, though. Grizzly, from the swing on the mining room, is able to pull back and just keep them guessing, keep them concerned across the big crossfires here towards the washroom. They do not have an angle and an idea, and everything's starting to fall apart for them. Yet again, they're in and trying to stick the diffuser, but with Leroy suffering huge amounts of damage, Rush finds one with only 3 seconds. They got to try and stick it, but they do not. Cowana are able to retake the lead, put themselves to map point, and I'm assuming head us back down to kitchen for one potential final swing.
It honestly feels like in so many of these rounds, if you blink in the final couple of seconds, you're gonna miss like everything. Because it's constant trades backwards and forwards. There's always a ton of kills in such a short space of time. I'm like, man, I can't keep up. But as you say, we are heading into map point. I did say match point earlier, but it is a best of 3, so it's not over after this. We have potentially 2 more maps after this. But it's been definitely a seesaw of who's taking the lead and who is not. And one thing that, without, any kind of like bias, there's no UK massive here, no RML massive, I don't know what they call themselves. But,
I know
think
the Polish one is
anything,
Polska Gorom. I see that. I don't know what, I don't know.
Does it mean Poland massive?
Maybe. I see it a lot. I see it when, obviously the Polish teams play. I'm not sure what the Russian one is.
I wonder
thought you
if,
would know. You're a huge Russian fan.
I don't speak Russian. I wonder if there are people from other countries who hear the term UK massive and they think we mean the word massive as in big. Because that just came to mind. That's not what it means in like British like slang. No. It's like your way of referring to like a group of lads usually. It's like, oh yeah, something massive. But anyway, there's your etymology lesson. The point I was going to make was the fact that even though we are still only in the first map here in Challenger League playoffs, what we are seeing demonstrated to us right now is despite the fact that there is a big distance in the seeding of these 2 teams, we are seeing just how competitive the teams who are present not only in Tier 1 but in Tier 2 of European Siege really are. And the fight for these 2 relegation spots is going to be absolutely brutal.
Well, match point. I was going to talk about the new horrific Rainbow Six themed event that has now been released. The video is up on the official trailer, but if you want that nightmare and all of those skins that absolutely are cursed, I'll leave that to you guys to have a look for. Sugar Fright has now been revealed, and now we have more pressing concerns, though. Other than the horrors of that, it's the horrors of Winstrike potentially losing this first map to Cowana. Okay, they have a good potential of being able to pull the next two, with Villa being their bastion and their choice coming up after this. But it's still one round. One round for them to be able to push themselves to OT and potentially not even see that third map, because they are going to be ferocious on side Villa. Steady seems to be the MO right now. Maybe some of the slowest approach that we've actually seen from Winstrike recently. They're definitely testing the waters and teasing the information game that has otherwise been very quick on their lockdown. Usually it's a drone or Iana met with the body and the physical embodiment of death that's brought to the Cowana Roamers. Here though, no Iana for the first time, instead bringing the Twitch.
We all love a good Twitch. Well, who was it? I think it was Chowder who tweeted the other day saying, does anyone actually play Twitch? We've seen her a decent amount. Yeah. I mean, you see her get played particularly if a team's bringing a mirror, for example, because you can pop the canisters. But here, you know, you can use them to get rid of ADSs, all kinds of different utility. A lot of teams prefer to bring other operators that are more efficient at that. But when you have someone like a Sophia who's been banned out, then you have more of an excuse to use her. Now, she's just trying to be careful because, you know, once you lose those shock drones, they are gone, and that's going to be the evil eye gone rid of. And a lot of the reason that Cowana were able to maintain such site control last time, I think Winstrike are trying to be significantly more careful to ensure that when they drop down and when they try to take the site, there isn't anything like that can be used against them.
I think this is very well read by Winstrike. Last time they were here, they realized that the hold by Cowana was actually away from the area. They trusted it down to intel and swinging stuff over, and they've kind of gone, well, we can shut that down with a bit of clever droning, and Rush is able to shut down Kayak, and that is a huge loss, not only the player, but the smoke canisters too. Exo, the player who was the first off the board before, is able to get one this time round, but the C4 yet again puts the kit down cold. Flarezo is quick to react, but with a man just round the corner, he'll hear that, he'll act, he'll strike, he'll find the map! There it is, Cowana! Gorgona and Grizzly lock it off at the end there, but only just.
They were ready to spring on that, and what was ultimately a very, very close round on Cafe Dostoevsky, or close map on Cafe Dostoevsky, as I could say. It swings in the favor of Cowana. They take their own map and set the precedent going forward in the rest of this best of 3.
7-5 though. Winstrike are here to play. And Villa, well, it is going to be a heft for Cowana to try and dig themselves into that map. That is surely going to be the biggest challenge that they have out of these 3 pool, but that's for a little bit later. We're just going to pop to some commercials, and then we'll be back with the desk to break that down for you.
Welcome back to the desk, ladies and gentlemen. Back with Jess, back with Hap, back with Des, and back with our first map winner here on the best of 3, which is Cowana. Des, tell me, I'm sure you expected it, but I mean, how did this actually go down? Because it looked to be a bit of a close one.
Much tighter today from Cowana, actually. Against Penta in their game on Cafe last time round, there were a lot of mistakes before the execute even got underway. In this game, their executes so well laid out, and even if they didn't always work out, it was down to a C4 catching them unexpectedly, walking inside a smoke in a couple of cases. More things being caught out against them by Winstrike, I think, than Cowana necessarily expected. But to give them a nod, I thought it was really well planned. They had a lot of bases covered for. Winstrike did struggle at points. For the second half, they started bringing it back, and then Cowana really turned up the heat in those dying rounds. Really good sight play, really good denial play, especially on Kitchen. Love to see it. Really excited to see what Villa can bring as well.
Oh, we got Villa coming up, Hap. This is a best of 3, so Cowana aren't out of the clear yet. And as a result, if Winstrike don't win their match choice, that of course give the match win to Cowana. But how do you think Winstrike will fare in it, and how did they fare in this particular map?
They surprised me, because after the first 2 rounds coming in, I really thought, wow, Cowana is really going to be running all over them because of the aggression that they managed to bring. But they still managed to bring it quite close, win the half as well, but they just weren't able to, convert enough rounds in the second half, as they said. And we're going to Villa now, also very technical map, and it's gonna be interesting because if you're looking at a map like Oregon, for example, a team like Winstrike relies a lot onto the Maverick by opening up these little holes that you can look through and get some side control. Villa lends itself a bit more towards that playstyle than Cafe would, so we might get to see some of those playstyles coming through here from Winstrike.
We were all talking before in our private call about the fact that we felt that Villa really matched the playstyle of Winstrike. Cafe was a little bit more free-falling and I guess promoted that newfound playstyle that Cowana has now. They're a bit tighter. There's not just 1 or 2 of those star players pulling up. I mean, Des, you said before, you don't think Sloth really popped off. I kind of looked at it as the whole team was kind of putting in one way, shape or form. How do you analyze that going into this map now on Villa?
Yeah, I said it after 2 rounds and after the first half, 2 kills on the side of Sloth. I was like, okay, this actually happened in a couple of games in the regular season. So let's see how he does in the second half. Comes out with 6 kills across 6 rounds. It's, well, no means a massive pop-off or a 3k, 4k round like we sometimes see coming out of him, but it's a consistent performance nonetheless. The 2 players I do have to give a nod to here is that the ones I've been not so much critical of, but while taking notes, been a bit more mindful of, is Grizzly and Anarchic. I always thought they were the quieter ones on side. They made a couple of role swaps today. We saw Anarchic get away from playing the smoke. That instead fell over to Kayak's responsibility. And between them both, really good play. A little couple of moments where like Grizzly was off on the roam on a Goyo, for example, and got himself snagged by someone coming after him. Same old mistakes there, but for the most part, those 2 players really stepped up today, and this was a team effort. This wasn't Kayak and Gorgona dragging the team through. This was all 5 members doing what they do best. Absolutely love to see it.
All right, well, Hap, do you have any predictions going into this particular matchup, or rather this map on Villa? I think you were talking about Cafe going either way. Des was pretty sure that Cowana would take it. I mean, I'm looking at this map and going, surely they win their map pick. We used to see a high percentage of teams actually win the other team's map pick, strangely enough. And, now that Cowana have won theirs, we have to see Winstrike win theirs. What do you think will be the turning point for them playstyle-wise? Do you think they just repeat the same things they've been doing on Oregon, as you spoke about before, or do you think they have to change things up against Cowana?
Of course, you cannot go for the complete same playstyles you have on Oregon because it's a completely different map. There is, 3 floors, of course, and there's a lot of walls you can use, but what we saw is that the ban from, especially the Sophia coming in from Cowana,
yep,
basically threw them off. You saw a bit of indecisiveness, like they swapped a lot of the roles around based off that, and the question is that something they were preparing beforehand or something that they were forced into now due to the Sophia being banned? Because if that's the case, another Sophia ban could basically handicap them coming up into this next map.
Do you think that's the same, Des? Do you think that Cowana turn around and go, we know what your crutch operator is? On Cafe, it was Sophia, and maybe it's Sophia going into Villa as well. Do you think that's just something they've identified as something that Winstrike really lean on, considering they're a very repetitive team, they're very predictable, so just get rid of that one operator that really helps them?
Yeah, I think either Zofia or Ash works quite well. You remove a lot of utility, you remove 2 comfort picks from the side of them and makes things a bit more uncomfortable. We saw teams like Cowana actually then leaning on the Kali. We didn't see that coming out the other side, so there are teams adapting around it. Need to see Winstrike be a little more flexible in their attacking lineups, I think, if that does get banned away here.
Well, what are we expecting ban-wise Hap on the other side?
Well, probably you're going to see a Thatcher and a mirror coming down from Winstrike again. It's something they have been doing consistently. I called it before, and would be surprised if they would leave the mirror open for now. And I think Cowana knows this really well, so they will not be banning the operators themselves. They're going to be leaving that into Winstrike's hands, which allows them to go for these counter bans. And then I'm looking at the playstyle that Winstrike likes to play. They waste the ADSs, they take care of the utility, that is when they go for executes. But when suddenly you're going to be, some of your gadgets are taken away, which you can clear out the utility with, as of the impacts of Zofia, or let's say the Ashwood Des just mentioned, it suddenly becomes a lot harder. Like the core of their game style, the core of their strategy has been ripped out underneath them. It's like trying to work the side with one hand, really. So I'm waiting to see how it will play out. So for them, I hope, for Winstrike, I hope there will not be a ban to some operator with explosives, because otherwise they might have some issues.
All right, Des, it looks like the players are slowly getting in, and I just can only imagine that yet another toilet break will stall us even more, as is predicted. I mean, you can't be a European player or any player in APAC North as well, exactly, to jump in the lobby and go, hang on, give me 1 more minute, I got to go hit the loo, and I'll be back whenever I decide to be back. You know, we don't run on a schedule here. We're chilling, we don't care, whatever, we just sit here.
I just wonder how far their toilets are, because yes,
I tell you what it is though, it's Sloth's like, man, I've had so much Red Bull now, I've got to get it out of my system, and that's it. It's just like, okay, release, down to the 2 cans, back into game we go.
Well, speaking of that, we're going to jump straight into it because I believe they are ready, and we'll throw over to our casters. This is the second map, hopefully not the last one, but if it is, well, it'll be a Cowana win, and if not, we'll go to the third map, which is Coastline. Let's toss it over, and we'll see you guys soon.
One of my favorite things that's developing about this is imagining Jess is driving a car and she went, why didn't you go before we left?
Oh, she would be that mum.
She would be that mum. 100%. She is entirely that mum. But she would also probably buy sweets. So it balances out. Hey, we're about to head into Villa. We're about to head into a site and a map that is... It's going to be tough for me for Cowana to step up. Because if Winstrike play this as they play this, it's a good potential map for them.
Well, I mean, I'm biased towards there being 3 maps. So part of me just wants to straight up say, I want Winstrike to win this just so that we can go to the third map. But it's true, this is Winstrike's map. In theory, anyway, you should be assuming that this is going to run into their favor as it stands. And Winstrike were very close to taking Covana's map off of them. So you never know how close it could get this time. But let's kick things off with the bans, and Cowana will kick things off with a Thatcher.
Kicking in and kicking off. Hey, is Sophia gonna go? I doubt it. It's Winstrike's ban. So it's their ability to kind of actually play and put some pressure onto Cowana here. Now, obviously, they're taking something out of their arsenal and trying to think what could be good to break away from Covana's, but an ace is not the most uncommon removal here. It pulls and structures away from a lot of teams, and, well, it's something there. If you're looking at solid and familiar bans, this, again, for me, plays towards Winstrike.
He's been used very significantly on this map, as a notable example because of the requirement for the long-range hard breach, particularly if you're attacking into study and you want to get the aviator or the games room wall. We see Ace be used onto the statue wall. We see Ace be used onto the vault wall. Basically, if there's a wall, a lot of people like to use Ace on it. So completely unsurprising, as well as the smokes being there for the plants. But with a Mirror and a Wamai joining the ranks, kind of unsurprising. Mirror always banned by Winstrike, and Wamai is a popular one as well.
Well, apparently Anarchic saying it was them being target banned for being the best player. Okay.
Oh, I see.
Okay, Anarchic.
I'll bear that one in mind.
Wait, let me just say this on broadcast. Last time you got very confident on the timeline. Things went a little bit wrong.
Yeah, and I'm actually just having a look, and throughout the Challenger League season, Anarchic has been the 4th highest rated player on Cowana.
Yeah, Anarchic,
Yeah, shut up, Anarchic.
You don't want to do the Gamma Gaming thing. You don't want to do...
Oh, no.
you don't want to bait that, because, we only ever see that go wrong. I don't think... Has there ever been an example...
Look, you become a meme locked away in a Google Drive.
Yeah. Has there ever been an example in the history of Rainbow and Con where somebody has been in a good position, got a little bit mouthy in the game? We saw it obviously in NA, where we had the Fable lines, GG, don't ever type again, as the response, which was so perfect. Chef's kiss. Has there ever been an example of someone talking in all chat and it going well?
Probably not. I would have to go through my archives of opinions of things that happened in all chat. But who knows? I guess we'll find out in this game how it's going to go as Cowana start things on the defense. And straight away, I actually like this setup that they've got going on in Aviator, where they've placed the shield in front of the open wall. It's basically like a budget mirror window, right? You can play behind it. You have access to what's going on outside. You can throw a C4 through if you want. And because it's a Vulcan shield as well, it could be popped from below, but the point still stands is it makes it harder to push into that room because you have to wait for the flames to subside.
Now, with Winstrike starting themselves on attack here, that's par for the course. It's Villa, it's generally defender-sided, and you generally expect the team with the choice to go defense first. But it is a hefty structural map. It's a hefty structural play space, and that plays, as I've said many a time, into Winstrike's favor. They set themselves up beneath. The corridors are slowly becoming locked down, and the doors that they want to access are ones that are, well, not currently doors, actually floors that they're going to try and blow their way through. If they can pop some pressure against potentially either those Goyo shields if they're close enough, or even just behind the walls and the angles to stop them being able to swing in if they approach study, well, that's what they want to do. Sloth, however, is going to shut that down pretty quickly. Goodbye, Zephyr. Swung on. And she was in piano. Oh, those are those angles. In the famous words of the hero of Siege, holes work both ways.
Oh, classic Emzo. And I feel like I didn't see if he used the lifeline, but I guess he was going to try and get rid of that shield. There's a second one as Sloth secures that and still maintains control here on main stairs. He goes for the third and he secures it.
Now, as they try and approach themselves towards something where things are very quickly falling through their favor. Sloth, okay. Sloth, stairs work both ways too. Finds his fourth and is looking for the eighth now. Leroy at least gets Kayak but gives the game away, and Sloth is not happy about that. Decides to try and apply some pressure on his own, but with a minute on, Leroy has all the time to reconvene. The thing is, I'm sure if you go to Sloth now, he's probably hunting for the man and probably resetting himself up for a position here. He's one of these two bodies on this staircase, I believe. They're watching, waiting. There's the fall, there's the fight, there's the stairs, there's the pullback, there's the attention, there's Sloth. Is there an ace? It is Sloth! Yes! Wow, that is a man. He sniffs the possibility. Gorgona is calling Sloth his back baby. Let's at least get to a second round, guys.
I can hear Twitch chat just chanting UK Massive. I don't have Twitch chat open, but I heard that that was taking up a lot of it in the last map that we had. So a good start there for the players from the UK. Not so great for Winstrike, who came into this map knowing that it was their pick and got completely picked apart.
Winstrike have been a little bit slow to wake on their halves so far. They haven't successfully started either their attack or their defense on the last map, and it was towards, theoretically some of the later bits where they started to look a little bit more coherent. Whether they won the rounds or not later seemed to be their more successive story, and I'm wondering if it's just going to be a trait that unfortunately becomes a trend that might lead to a lot of pressure. Obviously, it is a very strong start. Cowana, okay, Sloth refused to let the team onto the second story. It's a very bold way of playing it, but after Sloth gets his first pick, he almost plays to die. He's like, I'm Jaeger, I've got to kill. I'm going to see if I can get some more guys. If I die, I die. And you can't really stop him sometimes. If you're his teammate, the opponents can stop him. You just shoot him in the face. But there, sometimes it just takes one of those slow to wake teams by a lot of surprise.
Yep, well, Winstrike, once again, given that they're on the attack, my big concern for this team is that they are struggling to find the balance of getting an efficient clear, but also not allowing themselves to tunnel vision and allowing themselves to one-dimensionalize the way that they're approaching. It felt like that's what happened in the last round as well. And again, because we are heading on over to Trophy and Statuary, it's highly likely that this is going to be a multi-storied play from Cowana. And that's exactly what it looks like. And that is something that Winstrike can't afford to not deal with. And we could just find them running their heads into the same wall if that same pattern continues.
Well, the approach is coming with a bit more pace and panache here from Winstrike. Exo, who, as we said before, was a very big part of the entrance here, is actually picking up the Ash roll, with Smash taking the sledge instead. Obviously, previously, it was a kind of combination of the pairing, with one playing the Iana and getting the intel, and the other locking down and getting the kill. But they've drawn themselves to a slightly different approach here on a much heftier map. as they see if they can catch them with the drone play instead. Cowana has the possibility of rotating down towards the underneath the landing stage in the bottom of red, and it's just going to wait around the top, wait for a bit more pressure and wait for the push. Sloth, the man on 5 kills, is the one that might cause trouble and drama beneath as he hears the movements going on inside. It's down to that air jab that might catch them. He's going to try and see if he can get a spot and an eye on a beat on it, but surely at this point he'll realize there is no further he can go just yet. He'll wait to try this a bit later on.
Yeah, you can tell he's looking for it and he's not going to take the risk. But Rush trying to open up from below. Smash takes a lot of damage as well, but regardless, he gets the kill onto Kayak. It's a nice start at the very least. And there's a minute remaining, but Sloth is still downstairs. He's made his way up now. And this is where you once again find this problem of potentially being caught out. He's going to move on forward, but more kills coming in from Winstrike. There's one for Sloth. Winstrike still hold the advantage though.
Oh, he almost then does get the second, too. They knew exactly where he was, and the double from Sloth puts him on 7 and puts him into a quick retreat. He's done enough to cause some problems and needs to back up Gorgona on the site itself. The man slips past Gorgona, he sprays some bullets, but can't quite catch him, and the deer's going to become a bit of a battle here. Sloth has found his way inside the site and is looking towards concrete. The grenade pushes them further back, but he still finds one, and there's another for Gorgona as well. They've somehow pushed themselves into a 2 versus 1. He can't get the ace this time round. Gorgona is the lockdown there. Birthed from Sloth's rotation and roam past the air jab and through a double kill towards Astro Stairs. From there, Winstrike entirely taken by surprise.
Yeah, absolutely disgusting, the fact that such an advantage was allowed to be clawed all the way back. And despite the fact that there was that player downstairs who was ready to deal with Sloth, it didn't work. He got killed himself, and as you mentioned, you have the push on the Astro Stairs, and suddenly Winstrike are entirely taken by surprise. And I think it's sort of, again, like when you've been stunned in that instance and everyone can collapse in on you, it makes your job much harder. So now they're going to be heading down to kitchen. Again, this is likely going to be an instance of where you see, or potentially going to be an instance of seeing a multi-storied approach. You're going to, at the very least, the attackers are going to have to come in from the top down, and they're going to have the risk of Grizzly holding onto the cardiac sensor and holding onto the C4s along with those other players who have them. That'll be Gorgona and Anarchic. But you can tell that Winstrike are aware of the fact that there is this information that's being utilized by Cowana, and I think that's part of the reason they've decided to bring this IQ. They can watch out for that, and at the very least know where those eyes are being kept on them.
Well, they're getting their approach set up here for what is again a C4-laden hold, making sure that any general approach on the second story is met with the story of hey explosives. Okay, Cafe, 1 out of 50 was successful, so hopefully this time either team has a little bit more luck and success with their high explosives, because we've not really seen any of them land across the battlefield of Cafe. Winstrike, they set themselves up now again with a standard bringing of 4 frag grenades that has been a consistent contribution towards their approaches so far, but yet again, unfortunately, falls and befalls on the story of no real successive use of this destruction.
Still, his presence. Sloth, once again, I mean, he's becoming the name in everyone's mouths right now, and I think he is living rent-free in Winstrike's head as well. He's actually going to move these ADS, and he can just take them with him so that as he changes his location, he can change the presence or the place around which he either wants to anchor around. I mean, Kayak's there as well. He can protect him too. The point is, Winstrike are very aware that this man is out there, and he's a problem that they're going to have to deal with lest they want to be caught out and shot in the back as they approach the site. But not only that, they still have to keep an eye on what is going on with Grizzly downstairs. So these eyes are on them, and these pressures are on them from so many different directions.
Well, now as they watch with fervent vision towards the basement and try and see if they can find anyone below. Unfortunately, the monster that's haunting them isn't puppet-faced, but is actually very aggressive and swinging towards the danger zone of Winstrike across the landing. Sloth, he hops to escape and somehow gets away with it. 50% HP, and what we're seeing is a little bit less good of a solid hold on the defenders this time round. As we saw in Cafe, usually Winstrike were able to lock off any of those quick moment movement rotations. They had themselves set up to catch the fervent animals and the aggression that they want to swing. But this time, no luck, no dice. At least Winstrike have this top floor, and they've only suffered a little bit of damage from yet again another misblown C4, but the attention is now being paid down towards the site and the connection itself. Cowana is a little bit isolated towards the bottom of Astro's stairs as he waits for an approach here, but for now, with a minute on, they still got a lot of potential destruction. They've got to run above first.
Yeah, well, it feels like it's been forever. There's still a decent chunk of the round that remains, but a 10-man on the board. So that 5 versus 5 is still a problem that Winstrike are going to have to face. And with opening these vertical angles, one of these sides is going to have to face the prospect of potentially losing. There's, I believe, pre-placed C4, which has been shot away there by Rush, and that makes it a bit safer for him to continue on this destructible floor.
Gorgona goes down, but, well, luckily someone's there to help him back to his feet. Kayak, who was the first off the board last time round, is able to keep himself going and keep the canisters popping as well. A big bit of utility they're actually making some use of this time round. The firefight is coming on the door, and Rush finds his way in and finds the legs of Sloth, but there's a quick trade and a pick up. Everybody is starting to fall on the sides of Cowana as they try and dig the diffuser in, but they don't need to. Winstrike, they find themselves in that final 15 seconds and find a lockdown on all the bodies of Cowana.
It felt a lot more efficient, especially as they managed to keep a level head when dealing with what was going on upstairs, even though I like the fact that Sloth did move the ADS to try and provide Kayak and the shield with, more protection. They got out of there in time, and that meant that Winstrike had the opportunity to be able to take more control. I think as they started to open up, the bathroom floor, for example, there's a huge risk there. Regarding, what could happen below you, whether there's going to be a C4 that's going to come up and be a huge threat. And the fact that that didn't happen was a major part of why Winstrike were allowed to enter into the final fight as a full squad, because when you think about it, that is a moment at which you could risk losing a lot of your players. And as we've seen a lot in this series so far, we know that these final fights and these final engagements are going to be incredibly aggressive. A lot of the kills coming in at the end, and a lot of things popping up on the kill feed. And essentially, it just turns out in which way the trades land. And in that case, it went to Winstrike.
Last time we were here, it opened and then continued with a story of Sloth, healing everything that approached this delicate brown staircase. It started, though, with the loss of Rush, somebody who is such a big force and obviously was the leading factor there on the previous round, got them inside and got the kill and led to the success that fell behind. But also Zofia in terms of utility. They talked about how the ban on her on Cafe could have been a huge impact here. Obviously, she's bringing the impacts and trying to make use of them, which she couldn't do before. Crack those shields, crack Goyo, and crack any possibility of this brown hold being as successful and successive as it can be. So, Rush is probably going to play a little bit more controlled, and hey, Winstrike doing a plan B push. They do this quite a lot, to be fair. They like to set themselves up with multiple ways of ingress, so if the first fails, they're more than happy to try and adapt to their second setup.
I do like the idea that they're coming in from a different side of the map, because that was clearly something that didn't work out for them before, and that's dislodged Sloth from his position there in Master. And so that's a good start, especially as Smash actually manages to secure himself the opening kill as well. So it looks like doing this north side take could be the answer for Winstrike.
2 minutes as it ticks over, and Winstrike setting themselves up for their actual approach towards landing. They want to lock down all the angles and potential of someone looping in behind them, because it's cost them most time so far, and they want to push this body advantage. With Gorgona gone, they know that there's always more Cowana to strike back, because that's how Cowana like to play it. If they lose one, someone will very rapidly try to replace them. Sometimes even multiple members of Cowana decide to show up and get a little bit of revenge for their fallen teammate, and here they're not going to take any chances. Hey, remember when I talked about the Smash by Ash and EXO dream team of 1 drones, 1 pushes? Well, they're still doing it, and we'll probably do it for every single round. The C4 goes, and there goes Flarezo. Nice. 2 successes over the day, as Kayak is able to find his first kill and loops all the way underneath Wine.
Good example as well of a player who has actually found himself being one of the last remaining players on Winstrike quite a bit. So if everything goes downhill for Winstrike here, the fact that Flares was taken out early could bites them. It also means that Winstrike once again have to be aware of this presence from Cowana that's elsewhere, but they are making work on the wall with the Maverick. Grizzly's going to try and shoot in through the Mav holes that have been made. Mav holes are definitely something that Winstrike like to use. Okay, goodbye Exo. That was pretty easy there for Kayak, and that means that so much control is still taken here by him. He doesn't have a C4 any longer, as we saw him utilize it before, so he doesn't have the same level of threat. And while the nade does go into through the map holes towards Vault, the control is still being held at the top of main stairs.
Well, the pressure they're trying to apply back here is the cover potential for Leroy. He's going to dig in the diffuser behind the smoke and hope that they think it was thrown more perfectly. But there is the cover, and there's the activated diffuser, and there's a quick pair of kills for Rush. We talked about the importance of him before, and we talked about how quickly he was dropped, but hey, one more for the road. And that's what happens when the man is allowed to stay standing throughout the entire round. Winstrike pull themselves back and pull things level on Villa on their attack.
This is the point at which Winstrike are going to hope that they can actually lurch forward and make up for what's happened. The low momentum at the start of this, knowing that this is their map, and because this is, we have to reiterate, because this is a single elimination bracket, if Winstrike are to fall short in this series, that's it. Their opportunity to make it all the way to the EUL relegations and take a spot in EUL are gone. Straight up. So Winstrike have to continue to pull this back on this map because they need to take it to a third if they hope to make it to that point.
Trophy Statue, not going to try AVG again. Realize things weren't quite going the way they wanted to, but hey, let's throw our minds back to how this started last time, and it was very much in the favor of Winstrike. The only thing that really pulled it back was an intense clutch from the duo of Sloth and Gorgona, and you can't really rely on those every single round. So Winstrike are in a pretty good stead here too, because they have heated up over the past few rounds, obviously led by the duos that have led to a lot of kills. Rush there on that previous round, as I said, has been the instigator of all the ones he's still standing on, but Smash 2 has been able to put bodies down. Exo so far hasn't had the entry possibility that a Nash could. However, as I said, it's a duo ship, a teamwork that makes the dream work.
Cute. Love that.
Can you tell I was a manager in retail?
Well, I've never worked in retail.
You've never worked. Full stop.
No, I've never worked in retail or service. My first full-time job was when I became a full-time caster, but Flares isn't going to continue on in this esports stream, at least not for this round. He's taken down first.
I could have told you'd never worked in service. Now then, as we approach, and me, common cockney fluke, we set ourselves for what is a steadfast attempt here. Exo knifes his way through an invisible door and then hits the second with a man and the aggression of someone who really hates wooden doors and barricades. Kayak set up with himself in the deep corner of Astro and ready to yuck those canisters into the bathroom, but Rush yet again finds Grizzly. He is being such a force for the attacks right now and is really, for me, leading the pressure that Winstrike desperately need to keep themselves in this fight. Hey, Sloth looping up Astro stairs, but nobody's home this time around. Does it a lot sooner, gets caught out on the drone, otherwise you almost know he was going to charge his way into the bathroom and is at least going to put a little bit of food for thought into the brines and the guns of Winstrike.
I mean, I think he feels a bit more comfortable about it because this time Winstrike haven't decided to bring a Nomad. This is actually a very cheeky angle that could be being held by Rush, but as it stands, he won't find anything just yet. And Gorgona's watching down from above. He'll get Exo. And so that adds another punch onto the defeat that Winstrike have been feeling so far in this game. But my point was that there is so much room for Cowana to take aggressively because those air jabs aren't on the board, and the information that Winstrike would have had from the IQ was disappeared very early.
Wow, Gorgona finds a double above and keeps them locked down. Leroy and Smash, it's down to you two as you try and approach and pull back with a minute on the clock. Huge amount of time, and you have some utility left, as well as two very precious frag grenades, but Hey, there's the first, jiggling around onto the concrete corner. Can't quite catch the bullets on the second, though. Gonna cook a grenade and try and swing it. It's a dangerous game, especially when they just swing you back. And Arkic heard the pull of the pin and decided he wanted a little bit of that action. Now, with 1 man left against 4, Smash played well so far. He's able to at least get 1 back, but he doesn't have the easiest guns to make it happen with. Cracks away through onto the site, 25 seconds, and 3 more stand in front of him. They have Intel, they have Sloth, and they have Kayak with, I believe, some canisters left too. So it's not going to be an easy approach.
Another one of those players from Cowana was ready for the refrag, and because he didn't get it, it means Winstrike, or Smash rather, doesn't know exactly where he is. There's an attempt onto Gorgona, but it doesn't pay off. And Cowana take the next round, once again, putting Winstrike on the back foot.
Well, Gorgona, you pulled a clutch here last time alongside Sloth, and now you're going to make sure you don't have to do the same again. And to be honest, it was a very, you got to win that round, and you got to try and win the next one too back on AVG if you want to put yourself on what is a standard decent split, because the Winstrike defense on this map is going to be good. You know it, I know it, and Winstrike know it too. So they're already probably looking at their books as this as being a successful attack so far. Not their best, because every team believes that they can take a 6-0. Otherwise, you wouldn't play comp. If you don't go into the game with the headspace that you are going to beat your opponents, well, apparently that means for a lot of people's books, you've already lost the game itself. No, but from our point of view, with a slight bit more understanding of stats and realism, a 4-2 is still a very good split for Winstrike. 3-3, Winstrike are looking very good.
Definitely not something too shabby to be concerned about. And as you say, this is the 3rd time now the Cowana have returned to this site. However, last time they failed to keep it. A lot of that came down to the fact that Winstrike did go for an adaptation on their own approach. The first time that they came here, back in round 1, they basically put all of their eggs into the basket of, we are going to clear main stairs, we're going to throw all our bodies at it, and Sloth slurped all the bodies straight up. The second time they came here, they said, okay, let's go for a more mediated push from the north side, and we're going to make our way down from Master. And yes, while there were roamers on the side of Cowana, they were dealt with. Winstrike managed to open up the vault. They applied pressure that way, and then they cleaned up at the end. It was a lot better an approach from Winstrike. And it looks like they're going to be doing something similar this time. And of course, if it worked for you before, then why shouldn't it work this time? Well, the question is, are Cowana going to have adapted the defense enough to be able to halt this push in its tracks?
Steady approach seems to be the MO, and so far we've generally seen them have a pretty good track record of getting the opener, and then it's going from there. That seems to be a little bit of a mixed story for Winstrike. Having a quick look at himself and making sure that he looks plenty fine as for this time round. Hey, Kayak's not on the smoke. Pulling up the guns of Maestro this time round, and Anarchic is going to try the role of the smoke. A big change here is obviously it gives Kayak, a guy who can gun when he needs to, a very, very good gun to do it with. Slightly easier to manipulate and use than obviously the pairing of the smoke. Ooh, Anarchic. Okay, you were target banned by Ace, sure, for being the best player. Maybe.
3 and 4, by the way.
Maybe. Hey, smash. He smashed. And he smashed the wall, and I didn't call it, but he's going to push 90 now.
Well, he might.
He might.
Right now he's just holding on to it. Rush is taking control of the window, so it looks like Winstrike are doing a pretty good job of taking control of that part of the map. You've got to bear in mind that Grizzly is present here on the red stairs as we are being so beautifully observed as such, and it means that he is just ready to take anyone who may be close by as well. He has the C4 in hand. That could be another one of those huge threats. We're going to try to get the shots in down beneath, between the slats, I should say, as EXO runs around below.
Betwixt the slats, they do not fall as EXO runs down below. This might fall, though, as the wall is the one immediately pressured. The frag grenade changed their mind about it going over the top, maybe concerned about the rotation. Hey, it's Sloth who's decided to apply the pressure. Gorgona with the C4, no! Oh, just escapes the shrapnel of the high-impact explosive that was otherwise popped over the top. 2 guns pointed towards here. Kayak has the potential to do this, and does it. There goes the thermite charge, and there goes the breach onto the corner, and here goes potentially a very tough attempt at a plant, especially as Sloth gets rid of Rush too.
Oh no, I can see it happening all over again. Grizzly gets one with the C4 though, so that will deny any kind of ace potential, but it might also deny Winstrike's ability to take this round as they are only 2 men on the board. Flair still has the diffuser, but it's going to be incredibly hard to get an opportunity to plant.
Well, now it's cameras, eyes, and ideas, but with only 10 seconds on the board, this is very much Cowanna's to lose, especially as Sloth decides he wants another one to keep adding to the tally. Quick pop-up from behind, Cowana is going to lock it off, and a flawless round befalls the way of Cowanna. The first one since the opener in a while ago, and the flawless from the guns of Sloth, actually the ace, even. I'm confusing my own handwriting here. It's tricky to write while standing up. That's something I've learned.
Life is hard, isn't it? I do get kind of a bad back because when I'm casting, I stand, but my microphone like boom pole isn't quite long enough for my height, so I have to lean over.
There's 2 jokes I can make here.
Go on.
The first is they're both immature. One is hey, when the boom isn't long enough. The second though is about your height, because I don't think they make things for people that are 11 feet tall.
Oh, come on. All right. Yeah, it's true. It's a miracle I can even see the game from this kind of height.
It's crazy. The thing is, when if people got a photo of your setup, to us it would look like monitors. To you, it's like 80-inch TVs. Is what you use.
I don't have that kind of money.
Your mouse is 7 mice glued together.
I think we should talk about the game again. I agree with Medics. Why are you bully? Let's talk about the game again. And now that Winstrike have head over to their defensive half, this is where we are kind of hoping or expecting things to be pulled further into their favor, given that this should work in their playstyle. We've joked so many times about how Winstrike are this team who love Oregon. Oregon isn't being played. This is Villa, in case you're just tuning in and you, for whatever reason, didn't know. But the point still stands is Oregon's quite an...
Go on.
Nice shot. Oregon is quite a methodical kind of map where it really plays into that general Russian playstyle where you can do the same thing over and over and expect it to work if you can do it well enough. And I think that you can see something similar here on Villa because it is one of the more methodical maps rather than the crazy run and guns that we see, those young UK lads enjoy.
Yeah, now they're a bit concerned. Though obviously Winstrike decided to meet them at the border and, well, not let them in. Hey, remember the first round where you didn't let us onto the second story? Well, this time, Cowanna's not allowed in the building. That's fair as fair. War is war, and Exo is up in Astro, and there's another one just falling. Kayak completely taken by surprise there. They didn't even have the start of the setup of their roam control, but Sloth's at least able to find one back. Winstrike are entirely roaming the heft of this map and happy to try and explore all the avenues of potentially causing some destruction. Sloth is a bit concerned about the close push here, but the shield is going to make the approach a little bit tougher until he does this and pops it open with the destruction that is also going to match towards the Malusi that is set up onto this tactics table.
So much utility straight away being cleared very early from Cowanna, and also the air jabs being placed on the red stairs means that despite the fact that Winstrike do want to play the roam, they won't be able to use that for a flank. And actually we see this Exo is in a really interesting position where he's playing in study but facing northwards, but Grizzly can catch out Smash, who was going on the roam, and that means that has been dealt with from Cowanna.
Well, now they're trying to set themselves up for the 3 versus 3 push here. And a minute on, they still don't have the lockdown on Exo, and he could be the big problem. Oh, wait, there it is. Double kill. Puts themselves into another body advantage. They never quite had the solid lockdown that they thought they did. And there's another bit of mistake that has led to a death. Anarchic tries to move in the pieces of the destruction. Obviously, the Banshee screaming is going to give the game away of the motions that he's making. Swings all the way around, is at least able to take care of one. Looks concerned for the swing onto Study, but doesn't quite look far enough. Winstrike with a very aggressive hold lead to a very solid round.
Yeah, I think even though the fact that things got cleared up underneath, they sent another player down to deal with that, and that again kind of slow down what was happening, but they could also utilize the way that they were positioned up towards the site to go against the fact that Cowana were entirely coming in from the north side. So you could play with EXO positioned in study facing up in that direction. You didn't have to worry necessarily about someone coming from behind. And all of that in spite of the fact that Cowana were actually pretty efficient at being able to clear the utility that was present on the site. So it's not all about the utility clearing, kids. Apparently not. And that means that Winstrike, they put another round on the board as they head here into Trophy and Statuary.
Yeah, let's see if they set themselves up with the same spread of aggro that they were able to fly so well before. You assume Cowana will be a little more apprehensive on the approach towards the building this time to make sure they don't get caught out by the mobility that Winstrike wanted to offer and the culpability that seemed to cost them as the round burnt to its end. But you look towards EXO on a deep roam who really only had his first body putting down success over that roam, over that play. All of his kills have come from that first defense, and I'm wondering if this is a Jaeger player that is about to explode.
Definitely could be. He could be about to show Sloth exactly what he can do on the other side of things. At the very least, Cowana have started off this round without team killing, so they will be entering in with all 5 players. And while it is a bit of a meme, you also kind of can't discount it as being a potential reason for their loss on the last round. Winstrike did most of the work, but if you're going in with an immediate disadvantage, it really puts you on the back foot. That won't be a problem this time, but it could be as Sloth gets caught out, which he doesn't, as he sends that player from Winstrike scattering.
Now they've at least been able to, get into the building. All 10 players have escaped the throes of the Winstrike attack, and look at Sloth trying to meet them. And meet their maker very quickly. Wants to swing instantly in. Might not see the body, and does, but a little bit too late. EXO finds his 4th over 2 rounds and is thirsty for another as he creeps his way closer towards the games room rotation, right onto the corner kayak as the drone is going to get a bit of an idea of where they're at. Wants to apply the pressure, but has the ability with this frag grenade to not even have to, but does more damage to himself. Gorgona, oh no, a bit of a miss throw. Only shatters a little bit of EXO, but what a huge amount of blowback he just suffered.
Yeah, and the perfect time as well for Winstrike to be able to retreat back towards the site. Smash is still downstairs, but he gets caught out straight away. Gorgona, despite taking all that damage, he manages to have that repaid in karma for him. Winstrike are just relying on the rest of their players present over towards the site as the round continues. It does give Cowana more space, and they're going to prevent Winstrike from being able to take any of that with the air jabs being placed. And this is where they can start to move and rotate around and have a look at some of those windows and avenues of ingress that are on the other side of the map.
Well, the steady approach is starting to collapse down towards Leroy. They want to lock off all of the second story sooner rather than later, especially as they've only really got the minute left on the clock now. With Bedroom being the next point of ingress and Leroy being hyper aggressive as he peers from pillars towards the window. Let's see if anybody gets caught out from a misplay. No, this time Leroy isn't there to strike almost instantly, representing the Na'Vi charm, which I've heard gives you +5 towards swinging onto windows too. So that's going to be very dangerous for this approach.
Oh, he pushes forward. He takes some damage, but can't quite land the kill that he wants to. That means he will retreat somewhat, but there's fewer than 30 seconds remaining, so Cowana are going to have to make this push while Winstrike is still present here. EXO on the Astro stairs means that he can watch out for any kind of flank. There's the first smoke that comes out, and Cowana have less than 15 seconds.
Well, as the canisters pop over the door and a man pops in through the door, there is a bit of a quick trade, but Kayak, a man on a mission to put a diffuser down, is going to try and make it happen here. It's only Rush left in a 1 versus 3. Suddenly, Cowana struck and they took a round by the horns like the deer where they tried to plant near. They didn't plant on the deer, it would have been better. Does the deer even have horns? I don't remember. But either way,
Deers have antlers.
it was a solid... What?
I said deers have antlers.
They should teach me this in school.
Have you ever seen a deer?
I've lived in cities my entire life in England. I've seen a pigeon many times.
Is it a pigeon?
It was medics as le pigeon. Birds, they're not even real. That's the crazy thing here. 5-3. 5-3 is the turn of force, and that is, I mean, if you're looking on the board to pull even, 50% of the work done for Cowana. And they've just got to try and look and lock towards growing a little bit more. If we had a look at the previous map 2, hey, this is how it started before. It was 4-2 in the favor of Winstrike at the turn of the half. Then Cowana were able to take one of the opening 2 this time round, and it wasn't the second. It wasn't the first, it was the second this time, but they grew from that. So Winstrike, you got to step up. Otherwise, what was a very impressive season could slip between your fingers.
That's the big fear here, is as Cowana inch further away from those 3 rounds that Winstrike have taken for themselves, they inch closer and closer to moving on forward into the semi-finals of the CL playoffs. And Winstrike, who've been touted as the best team, or at least one of, in Challenger League, all of that could have ended up being for nothing. And you wonder if maybe some of that is being so inflexible on their map choices and now being forced to go against these other teams, especially one from a group that they haven't been in, on maps that they haven't played that much. There's still time and there's still a chance. You can see straight away Sloth is making his way in. This time round, it doesn't look like Cowana are spending all of their attentions down on the south side of the map, which is where they went through for the clear. Instead, they're staying pretty close to the north.
Now with Leroy playing around red stairs and the possibility of rotating and causing trouble, you look towards if you can get the first strike here against the potentially unsuspecting. Well, now they're suspecting as the drone catches them, gets the eye. The rotation started, but unfortunately couldn't quite finish the maneuver in time. Kayak steadies and busies his way underneath to try and clear any of the utility possibility here. They've gone for a different push, a complimented Winstrike on how they like to have a plan B approach, and so far Cowana are living up to that. Instead of going for the clear towards AVG this time round, they're going to focus all of their attention underneath and try and gut out the defense before they go for their final push.
Yeah, Rush being forced out of position there meant that he was significantly more vulnerable, had to keep an eye on the Astro windows. He was forced out from his relative safety of behind the desk. But regardless, so far, all 5 members of Winstrike still do stand as we get to the halfway point in this round. Grizzlies sending in the flashes as they get ready to clear out what could be behind. And it looks like Sloth is still ready here with the breaching charges, potentially going to open up the hatch. But you can tell that those players from Winstrike upstairs are moving around and actually giving more space in Astro so that they don't get caught.
Exo here could strike if he gets this first pick against Sloth. He's been waiting for ages, and they know that someone was around there, but they've finally turned their gaze away, and he's finally chosen this moment to strike. He's coming up the back of Sloth the same way Sloth did it before, but the cover comes through. They had them in the bathroom. Gorgona, a little bit late to the party, finds the bait and finds the push. Smash gets one back as the balance starts to fall with Gorgona dropped on the stairs. 40 seconds, though. They have to apply the pressure whilst they can, and they do. Rush goes down, another canister drops 2. They can't quite lock off the kill, and Gorgona's back to fighting standard as they try and apply the pressure onto the site. Sloth just swings in, finds 1, finds 2 for the 3rd of his round, and now it's only. Smashed by Ash on the far side, tries to push his way back in, fights over the mystical animal I've never seen before, but the head of the boar is the only thing that's staring at him as he looks for a little bit more. Swings now, but Sloth is the only animal in his sights, and apparently today the animals are the ones that are on the hunt.
And now Cowana find themselves not only on map point, but this time it really is match point. All they need to do is take this next round and they will have forced Winstrike straight out of the competition and pushing themselves forward. One of the most notable characteristics that I said about this team is that they are willing to scrap to keep themselves in. They went through it all when they qualified for Challenger League in the first place, and they are willing to do it once again. And here on Winstrike's map, it looks like they may be about to do it, consistently able to outsmart them and outflank them in moments where it's clear that Winstrike feel like it is in their advantage. And the question is, do Winstrike have the mental fortitude to believe that they can keep this afloat for the next few rounds to make it to overtime?
Medics, I'm gonna need you to do me a very quick favor, just for a second. Can you just put that board back up? Scoreboard back up. Sloth, 17 for 4. Now you may be thinking, why am I doing it on the whole board? It's on the side too. It deserves full screen application and vision. What a pop-off game, and what a time to have it. when he otherwise hasn't really been able to have the same effect that everybody who knows Sloth's playstyle expected. The man even took a bit of FPL by surprise when he was up to the top of the boards, having compliments from some of the biggest guns inside Siege community, like Pengu and Chuck, who both said, hey, who is this Sloth guy, and what is he doing? Well, this is what he does. And this is the first time for me, I think, we've truly seen him able to do it. And again, heck of a time to pull up Sloth, heck of a time.
Definitely the moment that you need him, and it really sets a good precedent going forward in the rest of the competition, assuming that Cowana do go forward, but as it stands, they're certainly looking to be moving in that trajectory. EXO, once again, on the roam, something that we've seen pretty consistently so far, but he'll still be feeling the sting from the fact that he got caught out in that last round and looking to make his mark before the opportunity comes around to do it once again.
Medix has just realized that the announcer in the game is in French because he forgot to swap it after the French finals.
He is in France.
Yeah, but he also did the French finals. They borrowed Medix over the weekend and the studio. It was both nice. It was both nice to see them in our studio. I got a lot of love for the French casters, as a lot of people do. They were the first casters to give me advice on my fledgling journey. A lot of love for them. But also, I kind of wanted to be there too. Talking of wanting to be there, Sloth, just under 2 minutes, already applying pressure from landing towards the potential plant spot and then over on the opposite side too, because why not? I'm Sloth. I want to gun on everything right now.
You know, he's trying to... I can hear the French in the background now. It's, I'm not going to be able to let that one go. EXO looking up, but you can tell that Sloth's just trying to remove the Valkyrie. That's Rush, who's down the corridor. Behind a shield, I believe, that they still have not cleaned out. But you can tell that his reaction times, at the very least, were ready to take those shots. Not only that, but the X-Kairos is opening up the... Well, attempting to open up the vault wall, as I believe that got impact tricked by Illyri.
Now, as we start to stack ourselves up a minute on, they were very, very quick to get the start of the push here, and it's down to having all the bodies standing, which obviously they very much did not have at this point. They were looking much worse for wear when it came finally time to apply the kind of aggression towards the site itself, and this time they've just ignored it as Kayak tries to dance a very blind dance here on the close corners. Throws the man in, who jumps on the tactics table and looks over the top, but there's a quick kill for Sloth, and there is a load of damage done the opposite way. Another one falls as an R-kick gets the lock off. Grizzly can't quite get the diffuser down as Flarezo moves and manipulates inside the smoke and finds a second. An amazing bit of spread of aggression, but Cowana is there to apply some pinch pressure from inside Study. EXO has to very fervently rotate up as Rush is doing everything he can to keep them locked down. Knows there's a man in Study. Knows that he can't put the pressure on, so he just has to try and keep the angle of the door locked off. Hey, there's EXO. Hey, there goes Sloth. A big take from underneath. Loops round and tries to apply it, and Rush again locks down and holds off an R-kick. The only one left. The player who springs and tries to find a bit of action knows that there is a worrisome body and a bit of control, knows that the pressure's here, and knows
3 seconds.
that they're just trying to hold themselves off, and they know how to play those moments. Winstrike pull themselves to the timer, pull themselves away from danger, and pull around.
Oh, it really looked like it was getting close there. As you could see, the bodies just dropping on the side of Winstrike, but a great 2K from Flares managed to, at the very least, swing the momentum around. I was worried that maybe EXO's presence elsewhere off the site was not going to necessarily be conducive towards Winstrike taking a victory in that round. But evidently I was wrong, especially being able to get the vertical angles through the floor. But crucially, that was a blow too close to death for Winstrike, knowing that this is really their last chance to stay in the competition. And yeah, it was just all a big mess of smokes and not quite mirrors, but candelas were certainly in there. It didn't work out for Cowana.
Did not, and it's going to be down to, again, as we said, the beautiful play of the smoke there. Moved and manipulated the play space with the beauty and grace of a man that is throwing toxic chemicals and is the only one who remembered to bring his toxic chemical mask. Hey, save a mask, save lives, and then use a gun to try and, you know, stop the approach and... Oh, no, wait, I'm talking about Siege. Now, as we set ourselves up, still on match point, still in the danger zone, and still dancing the delicate dance of, oh no, we don't want to go home, because Winstrike had a very good season. They're a very good team. There's unfortunately just matched a team that is playing their best all season. Cowana, sure, they came through as the lowest seed on their group, a group that included Penta, and a group that obviously included M&M, two of the other huge hitting teams that had high expectations. And out of all of this, out of all the play days, this is easily the best Cowana have played.
Yeah, I've actually been really impressed. There's been some inconsistency in the main season, and I came into this game thinking, well, expecting Winstrike to very much be on the front foot and worry that Cowana wouldn't necessarily show the kind of, not even necessarily aggression, but just forwardness and consistency that we needed. But I have been very much proven wrong in that sense, and they just don't look like they have any chance of stopping. But EXO and Rush now following up with a C4 suggest actually I may be very much mistaken in that one.
Hey, one of the best rounds we've seen on all the defense here from Winstrike was when they threw themselves to the wind and threw themselves at their opponents. It was when they played their best on their attacks inside Cafe as well, and here it's kind of good to see them knowing that, learning that lesson. 3 very, very quick kills. Some of the highest pace bloodshed that we've seen since, oh wait, one of the last times they really succinctly won their rounds. Their first defense here was started in a very similar fashion, and now it is a tough battle for Cowana to pull themselves back. They still have the possibilities of obviously one more round after this, but Kayak and Anarchic, can they lock themselves out here, or can they at least find some bodies to start the pretense and potential of taking a round?
I like this that Anarchix decided to use the X-Cards to get the angle so he can look down below, but once again, another kill from EXO leaves Anarchic all on his own. He doesn't have any drones, so this is a lot more of a pressurizing situation, especially as he's going up against all 5 players remaining from Winstrike. Right now, he's just playing it cool and safe in Master, and he's going to make a rotate round. The fact that everything happens so quickly, so earlier in the round, means that he still has plenty of time to play with here, as it's only just past the minute mark.
Now as Anarchic looks towards the pantry to see what he can pull out, it's a closed door that he's decided shouldn't be there anymore. Wants to cause a bit of a bait and attention as he swings more aggressively, but, well, Winstrike want to swing back. That's how they've played this round, that's how they found a lot of success, and now they're in a situation where they have a huge body advantage. Heard the reload, the flashes come out, the C4's caught, but there he goes. Flawless from Winstrike, couldn't come any sooner. Just do it once more, and you'll find yourself back in the running for this map.
Going for the ADS at the end there maybe wasn't the total best idea, but regardless of that, Anarchic was in a difficult position. Still the best player, though. That is if you believe the chat from the very beginning. But yeah, this is actually looking like something of a redemption arc here for Winstrike that they desperately need. It's almost like they looked in the face of fear and they were like, okay, no, we don't want that. And it's interesting. It reminds me of something that I think it was Doki who said about Na'Vi, which was, we feel we play best after a big defeat. And it's almost like Winstrike have seen that big defeat coming for them, and they've preemptively been like, we've got to pick this up now. And so far, it's going well.
Now it's just one more dance on your defense to get yourself to OT. Something that we haven't seen in EU in a very long time. And it's going to start here. A sight that has befallen you a couple of times and has so far been your only unsuccessful sight to hold on your defenses. So what lessons can you learn? I'm kind of curious to see if you bring the aggro game. Both times it has been exceptionally successful for you, but they were very spaced out. You're able to take Cowana by surprise both times. You assume they're eyes on. This time you assume they're aware of the potential pressure that might be applied to them before they even get close to the walls of this fabled villa. So let's see, Winstrike, you've already set yourself and spread out pretty intently across the top floor. You're waiting and baiting for the potential of eyes on towards the AVG side with a lot of rotation coming round. Curiously gazing towards potential vault cameras as Rush is going to apply some intel pressure towards the guns of the rest of Winstrike.
Well, this could be the round. The Winstrike take it all the way to overtime, and we still see the hope of a third match come along. But it could also be the round that Cowana shut down their EUL dreams and forced themselves forward. Smash just peeking out of the window to look for anyone who may be nearby. And Grizzly, while he's on the rappel, so far hasn't been caught out, and Smash instead is going to rotate away.
Now then, as Sloth starts to apply the pressure on the second story, the Z pings are coming out, and the mobility movement of Winstrike inside AVG. Grizzly is trying to keep a lockdown on 90, as Smash is the one that wants to get right underneath and cause some problems. Unexpected strikes has been the big cost for Cowana so far, and they're making sure that they don't pay it again. 3 bodies are what they're being matched with so far. They've seen one for sure. They can hear the drones buzzing as they look towards the second. Pre-fires all the way down, but they can't get any purchase. There it is. Sloth goes to Smash, the one that they didn't quite have the angle on. Grizzly let him slip through, and that was a very costly moment for what was the entire purpose of why you're on that window.
And immediately hopping through the hatch meant that Smash really got away, but actually he doesn't get away with his life this time as Grizzly clears him up. And with 2 kills as well, that means suddenly Winstrike are behind. The remaining 3 players move back towards the site, and they still have the protection of shields and banshees and whatever else may be around, but there's still plenty of time on the clock for Cowana to push forward and deal with all of those things, especially as there's not really much of a risk for some kind of late flank with EXO and Smash, those notably aggressive players, removed off the board.
Well, as they pass the diffuser over with the minute, they're going to set themselves up for their idea of a retake now as they reevaluate their push here. They're going to put the pressure onto the bedroom. Kayak is going to get in close and personal and start blowing up. Oh, bounced off. It was the stun that cost you there, and you know nobody's playing the close corners, so that gives you the game away to do it safely. There it is. There's the follow-up, there's the bait, there's no ADS there, there's no body there, and there goes the Banshee. But unfortunately, the bounce this time led towards his own face. Anarchic suffers on the windows as Leroy plays hyper-aggressive inside the bathroom, as we've seen him do before. The frag grenade doesn't quite catch him, and look where he's gone. He pushed all the way into walk-in as he digs himself in with a much likely strike here to try and apply the pressure onto these pellets that pop round. There's a trade. A grenade goes off, and a 2-3 is the body split now, as it's now down to a 2 versus 1. Grizzly is the only one left as he tries to dig his way through onto the site. Can't find anybody, though, as Winstrike play the hiding game they're so adept at. And they find themselves pulling even 6-6.
Winstrike can breathe. I think one of the big risks that Cowana took in that round was the fact that in their endeavor to remove EXO and Smash off the board, they played very aggressively with their drones. We saw when that player, I don't remember if it was EXO or Smash, I think it was EXO, was present in games, straight up, there were 2 drones who came all the way up to him, they got rid of him, he got rid of the drones didn't get rid of him, God imagine. And they were just losing them very, very quickly. And then by the time that they actually had to push up towards the site, and you have those final 3 players, as you said, you have the stun go out from the Zephyr. You know that no one's playing on the corners. That's one thing that they know about the positioning, but they need those drones to be able to figure out their last few steps so that they can actually take it to Winstrike. And the problem is they didn't have many drones. I think that Gorgona still had one left. I saw him bring one out. But the point still stands is that despite the fact that you might have a decent amount of time left on the board, if you haven't got a real safe way or efficient way to be able to figure out where those locations that you need to be focusing on are, you're still going to have the disadvantage. And we saw that play out at the end of that round.
Well, I said it at the very beginning of this game, that Winstrike usually look better towards the later half of a round. They always, or look better towards the later half of a half, and that was kind of the proof of the pudding there. 3 defensive rounds in a row, the final 3, the most important ones they have to get, because otherwise they lose the game. Now they're on 4 in a row. Now they're on a position where they can kind of push this on the turn of the half, push the energy and the momentum that they've built up into this game and see if they can keep themselves rolling, something that they haven't really been able to do before, and obviously it cost them the previous map. Now it's been able to pull them back into a situation where they might be able to push themselves towards a 3rd map here on their map, Cowana. They've not really dropped off, but they have been taken aback by a more aggressive, more controlling Winstrike than I guess they've really seen today.
All right, so now whoever it is who's going to win this map, they need to do it in the course of the next 2 rounds. Well, they'll have 3 rounds to do it, but Gorgona won't. Goodbye to him, says Flares, as Winstrike set themselves off on a good start as they head into this first overtime round.
Well, the misthrown flash doesn't quite make it all the way through there and catches them as Rush is looking to read down brown stairs even and apply the pressure towards the bodies at the bottom. There it is, and there they go. Oh no, you're looking the wrong way and you go for that swing and it costs you dearly. Grizzly couldn't quite get the trade and pull the body back as the pressure's coming from above with the angles that they'd opened by the bar. Now, as Grizzly finds themselves cut off, Kayak is looping around to see if they can try and pinch a body. They've been able to do it before, where they've been slightly down and slightly onto the kind of beat and the rhythm of the round. They've been in pressure situations and made it work before. This time, however, they've still got a lot left to do. Drop the camera, sees the body on the brown stairs, but Rush again, that's 2 that have fallen to a man that is in a very standard, steady default hold.
Yeah, and it's a shame that Kayak didn't have the opportunity to try and remove that shield before you had the player from Cowana try and remove Rush as well, because it meant that he just had the extra positioning, and suddenly you lose a body slightly earlier than you necessarily needed to, and you could have taken that. But there's another essentially trade backwards and forwards coming out as Kayak and Rush lose their lives. We are in the final minute, but with just a Narkic remaining. He's the final player on Cowana. Everyone else on his team is down.
Well, this is a bit of a tough save here, and you don't even get the exit frag for the stats. Winstrike, they're on a roll, they're on a tear, and now they're on their attack, with 1 round separating them from being able to pull themselves towards the 3rd map of Coast. A curious place to play for me between these 2 teams, and something that, if I'm honest, would be quite nice to see, because both teams have the capability of leaning and leading into the aggression that Coast can offer. Wow, there's so many windows for Sloth to throw himself out of, but at the same time, for the compliments, I played him a little bit earlier for the pop-off game he's been a little bit quieter. He's still on a 2.0 KD at least, so he's still having a great game, but I think at the other time it was like a 3.4 KD, so you know, he hasn't quite found the same purchase as of yet.
Disgusting. He's really slipped.
It's just washed.
Yeah. Complete wash player. Disgusting. What? Go on.
No, I was just going to say 7-6, but you go.
Well, you're not wrong. Mm-hmm. It is a 7-6, but now Winstrike are on their lesser favored half.
Yes.
So despite the fact that they had a ton of momentum swing through, while they were on the defense, they got 4 defensive rounds in a row. Now we are going to see potential flaws. And, I mean, you never know. They could still be running on the same mental momentum, but they only took 2 rounds when they were on the attack. And not only that, one thing that's very characteristic of Winstrike's attacks is they like to play very close together. It's almost the entire opposite of how they like to approach their defenses. And it's something that we've seen Cowana particularly catch them out on. I'm thinking all the way back to the very first round where they all invested themselves into trying to take down at the bottom of the main stairs. And Sloth just cleans everything up. So that's something I'm going to be looking out for. I mean, if they are to lose this round, then they are still in this game. But, you know, being in the situation that they're in, they're going to want to clean it up as quickly as possible.
Well, the approach is coming in now from Winstrike, and they are hot and quick and heavy towards the top floor here as they make sure that they have everything open that they need to, including the windows to catch anybody that heads up in the destruction possibilities. Flare Zone now has a moment to breathe and get the drones out to cover the entrance of the opposing attackers. As we've already said, the balance from them is one where they do enjoy hot droning each other around corners and swinging into firefights with that aggressive mentality. So far, they haven't been able to catch anybody as of yet, but would have potentially just seen the head of Sloth as he approached from the long corridor and took himself up instead. Grizzly moving underneath, dropping the drones that are there for the flank. Watching Zexo is the one looping around with the Jackal, getting the pings, getting the possibility, and pushing them all the way back up brown stairs.
Yeah, I was going to note the fact that Winstrike had decided to bring this Jackal, especially given how the aggressive play coming out from Cowana has been used against them. I think being able to track and scare those players like Sloth and like Grizzly, who could be trying to push up on you, is definitely one of the biggest favors that they can apply to themselves so far, as they're taking control of 90 here, having removed some of the utility and pushed back the players.
Well, Flarezo suffered a huge amount of damage, but is still standing and has the ability to pull those very important flashes to start burning off ADSs. Swings around the close corner there to make sure nobody is in that aggressive position, and they're going for the Maverick across the top of the vault. A very important setup here. They're doing the same little double push they did before, a way to potentially apply some pressure here and stop the catch. They have obviously grenades. They're a big grenade team, but they almost catch one of the wielders on their approach, and they're not going to risk that too much. But there is the first. Kayak goes caught out by the control over the gun vault, and now with the body looping underneath, Exo might be able to apply some pinch push pressure on the opposite side.
Oh, really nice there by Winstrike to be able to get that kill, and I would imagine ostensibly also take the shield from within as well. Makes it basically impossible to hold on to Vault for the defenders, and you can tell that Winstrike are just maybe going to look to plant very, very soon. There's a smoke, there's hiding Grizzly, but there's the attempt at the plant.
Well, the canister is going to start cooking, and Grizzly cooks another. There goes Leroy. Doesn't quite get the diffuser down. 20 seconds, and another one falls. Suddenly, everything started to fall to bits. Grizzly is dug in. There's a body on his left, which is going to be a bit of a pressure here as they know he's there and wants to swing onto this situation. There's the giveaway, and there's Flarezo attempting it, but the C4 comes through. Gorgona is able to lock it off before the canister even can. At this point, you've just got to try and stick it. It's a 4 versus 1. It's only smashed by Ash, but unfortunately, there's only no time left. Retreats. Save KD. Cowana find themselves back on map point. This one is series point, and this one is going to be their toughest attack yet.
In absolutely none of that final engagement did any player from Cowana die. Winstrike were obviously very focused on wanting to push on in so that they could get the plant down. They used the smoke over towards where Grizzly was, I believe, because it makes it harder for him to see where those players are going in. But regardless of that, you still have the Toxic Babe canisters that come out that dealt so much damage. It actually killed one of the players on Winstrike, and they can use that as well to their advantage. If you're bringing out smokes, it comes back to the holes work both ways, staircases work both ways. Obscuring vision via smokes also works both ways. And when you have so many players from the defending side who are still present on site, just not on necessarily the part that you're on, they can still use that to be able to get shots in on you, and you don't know where they're coming from.
For me, I'm wondering if maybe that canister just went a little bit further than they wanted it to. They potentially wanted it just on the door instead. I'm not sure if they entirely knew that Grizzly was dug in that corner specifically, or whether they just wanted a wider cover and a wider bit of support. So they probably believed someone was in study, or at least had the potential to swing around onto the door, and I think they wanted to isolate that. And Grizzly just found himself suddenly amassed in smoke. Hey, when did that happen earlier on? Oh, Flarezo! In the same kind of site, same push, same setup, had his canisters and the smoke canisters working entirely against him, was able to just move in and amongst them and then drop anybody else that was causing a little bit of chaos. Now, though, we find ourselves in the kitchen hold. A fair pick, a much more successful run and rate here for Winstrike. It was led with a very good stead of aggression, and this time I guess it's down to seeing if Cowana can learn the lessons, because their trophy take was good twice and then it fell off. Here they didn't really get a chance to apply the pressure they wanted to. It was all left to just an R kick, as it seems to be pretty continually. So Cowana, what's the adaptation you want to apply?
Yeah, that's the thing here. You know, Kitchen is a site that Winstrike have only defended once so far in this game, so you can tell that it's a risk from that perspective. But as you say, Cowana have been effective at dealing with a trophy site. So Winstrike don't have much of an option here. As you say, Cowana looks set to do the kind of standard going down from above, but because once again, Exo has brought along the Oryx, it's not the first time in this game he has done so, but he could, you know, evade a lot of those air jabs and be able to get the flanks around onto the players who are looking for the clear.
Rush was looking for some instant aggression there, but nobody has really been caught as of yet. Still loose on the roam and trying to apply the pressure from the art door run out here, swinging on to the pre-placed open angle, but nobody of Cowana is home as of yet. Gorgona is more concerned about the closer run-out potential of either the washing door or even the stairs itself that can cause some chaos. Now, though, as they're waiting for, well, now they're waiting for the intel to start coming their way. They drop the Valkyrie cam that was buried in, and Sloth has himself in a situation to apply the pressure here. Gorgona wants to start digging in via the washing machines and see if they can cut off the close corners and potentially try and slip the diffuser in, as Leroy is the one that might be the first point of ingress. Potentially going to loop that over the top, but it doesn't really do much. Unfortunately, nobody is that close to the wall. Leroy's on the far back side of it, but they didn't quite have the beat. Rush still on the roam, on the explore, and maybe going to try something here, but does Sloth know as he punches a door? This could be a very big loss. There it is. Doesn't quite win the firefight, but it suddenly explodes down in and amongst the wine barrels. Sloth is lucky to escape with his life there, and you can see another blue body has come down to offer some support, but they drop instead. Exo actually loses his life while Sloth hunts the other man. Probably knows that was the second swing, and it was a bold attempt to guarantee a kill, but unfortunately it's fallen away from them.
Rush is still down there though, and he could find that he'll get killed if he gets caught out. Is he going to be able to win the fight? No, he doesn't. Leary does get a C4 kill, but it's still falling apart for Winstrike. 3 versus 3 now, and Sloth is incredibly low health. Fewer than 30 seconds remaining, and this is basically it. If Cowana can make this work, then they will take not only the round, not only the map, but the game entirely. There's the plan, and now Winstrike are in a post plant.
Well, they find themselves now in a 1 versus 2 post-plant. Anarchic still up, but at least Sloth's dead. Smash, a huge player, has been able to push them a little bit further back, but is concerned about the watch from the windows. It is huge angles they can have, and he can't quite get the long arm. He is desperately trying to get the prompt for the animation, finally finds it. As they're listening and firing over, the bullets come through. They know that they can push him off. 20 seconds, and he has to go aggro as he swings and hucks and impacts, but he's doing the same dance he did before again. Doesn't quite get the pop-off there on the animation. Gives it up. 10 seconds. There is a great swing, though. A 1 versus 1. Can't quite get the second. He does not have the time. Winstrike, you slip through, unfortunately. A tour de force performance throughout the season is unfortunately taken away by the forced performance of a UK team that stepped up just as they did in the open quals. Here they are once again, Cowana. A well-played day and a well-played victory.
And despite being the #1 seed of their group, Winstrike are the first team to say goodbye from the Challenger League playoffs. The single elimination bracket not working out in their favor, and they won't be finding themselves in EUL. But Cowana, the team who have so much fortitude and will just continue on their pugnacious attitude, means that they will be moving forward after taking the first two maps of this best of 3. They proved that they could do it, and you can hear the UK Massive, not just from Twitch chat, not just from our hearts, but Derry probably as well.
23-9, Sloth. Yeah, that's a pretty good day, mate. Well played. But we'll see what the desk has to say. I believe we've got an interview too, but I'll leave that all for the unstoppable Jess Goat. Please, take it away.
What kind words from the gorgeous Flute.